Chapter 517. Be asterisk starred. Be asterisk starred. Zhang Laozi was naturally fierce. Under the effects of the poison, he grabbed the giant viper's head and stabbed the tip of his battle axe into the giant viper's eye. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere. This blow was enough to kill the giant viper. After killing the 4 guards, it finally collapsed. However, Zhang Laozi was also lying on the ground. The muscles in his legs were beginning to collapse, and his body was trembling. This snake venom was not your average kind of venom. It would take at most 2 minutes to take away his life. Heavens, this is bad. Lu Yu naturally knew that Zhang Laozi was the strongest person in the group. If he died, how would the group find the heavenly tome forest? What do we do? Who knows the art of detoxification? Lu Yu yelled. Zhang Laozi's body was trembling. He was on the verge of death. His eyes were hazy as he said, "Young master, I can't do it anymore. Laozi can't accompany you to find the heavenly tome and restore the Lu clan's prestige. Young master, this subordinate is useless. At this moment Lin Muyu, who was behind Lu Yu, took out a bottle of medicine and said, "Spread this medicine on the wound. Quickly, or else even the gods won't be able to save him." Yes. Lu Yu was extremely anxious. He took the bottle of antidote from Lin Muyu and poured it on Zhang Laozi's leg. In an instant, the snake venom turned into steam and dissipated in the blink of an eye. The antidote was worthy of being a level 10 medicine. After a few more minutes, Zhang Laozi's wound actually became rosy. His physical strength and qi also recovered a little. He looked at his leg in disbelief, then looked at Lin Muyu and said, What kind of medicine is this?" "An antidote made by us hunters." Lin Muyu played it down. Zhang Laozi struggled to stand up and immediately knelt on the ground, saying, "Young master Lin Yan, this lowly one had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Thank you for saving my life." Lin Muyu nodded. "It's fine. Bandage it up and let's continue our journey." "Yes." Zhang Laozi dug out the 3,000-year-old viper's spiritual stone and handed it to Lu Yu before continuing on his journey. Soon Lin Muyu sensed the aura of the giant viper again. This time, there were 3 of them. These giant vipers were nearly 10 meters long and were no different from pythons. Moreover, they were highly toxic and could not be dealt with by ordinary cultivators. Zhang Laozi and the others were also quite surprised. The lethal giant viper was only pretty strong, according to the hunter kid. Just how strong was this hunter kid? Rustle! The grass in front of them shook, and 3 giant vipers appeared in everyone's vision. Immediately, despair and pain appeared on Lu Yu's face. He said, "How could this be? So many giant vipers, what should we do?" Zhang Laozi hurriedly raised his battle axe and said, "Brothers, prepare to fight with me and kill all these poisonous beasts." Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Why don't you let me do it?" Zhang Laozi was stunned. "Young master Lin Yan, why don't we let young master Lin Yan give it a try?" Lu Yu nodded his head. Although it was immoral to say such words, 4th Zhang and the others would definitely die if they went up against him. Why not let Lin Muyu give it a try and see how capable he was? Qi Ning gritted her teeth and stared at the giant vipers in the distance. One is 4,200 years old. One is 3,720 years old. And the last one is 5,430 years old. "Brother, you have to be careful." "Don't worry." Lin Muyu pulled out the star's sword with a dang sound. The blade was shining brightly, and it was obvious that it was not an ordinary weapon. However, Lu Yu and the others did not care about this. In a life-and-death situation, everyone's attention was focused on the 3 deadly giant vipers. Whoosh! Lin Muyu leaped off her warhorse and dashed towards the giant viper like the wind. These giant vipers had been cultivating for many years, and had long developed spirituality. Sensing the strength of the enemy in front of them, they opened their horrifying jaws when they were still a few meters away from Lin Muyu. The venom in their fangs spurted out in a swoosh swoosh. Whoosh! Battle qi appeared on the blade of Lin Muyu's sword. Zhang Laozi immediately exclaimed in shock. "Oh my god, it's battle qi! He's a heavenly realm powerhouse." Just as the giant viper's venom was about to reach her, Lin Muyu suddenly let out a low roar. Layers of battle armor appeared around her and repelled the venom. Zhang Laoxi's face was still deathly pale, and he was dumbstruck. Oh my God! He's a heavenly king powerhouse. How is this possible? Gotcha! The star's sword slashed horizontally, and a giant viper's head was quickly cut off. Lin Muyu's body spun, and a fiery red king's battle flame surged out of her left hand, directly burning the 4,200-year-old giant viper to ashes. Zhang Laoxi was about to faint. His mouth was dry, and he said in a hoarse voice, "Oh my God! Is that king's battle flame? He's actually a holy king powerhouse." With a hissing sound, the 5,430-year-old giant viper opened its bloody mouth and pounced at Lin Muyu. It was already prepared to fight with its life on the line, but unfortunately, the disparity in strength was too great. Golden light flashed continuously around Lin Muyu, and before anyone could see clearly, the God-binding chains and 7 luminaries' immortal gourd had already disintegrated into the 7 luminaries' immortal sword. The huge golden sword circled around the star's sword, and with a crack, it fell from the sky and directly split the giant viper into 2. This can't be real. Zhang Laoxi stood there, dumbfounded. A person can't be this strong. There's no way he can kill a 5,430-year-old spirit beast in one hit. This can't be real. But everything was right in front of them. While Lu Yu, Zhang Laoxi, and the others were dumbfounded, Qin Yin, the little sister of a hunter, was not surprised at all. She clapped her hands with a smile on her face and said, "Big brother is so strong." Lin Muyu smiled and quickly took out 3 poisonous spirit stones and put them in her Qianquan bag. This was a spirit beast that she had killed alone, so there was no need to share the spoils with others. A few minutes later, Lu Yu, Zhang Laoxi, and the others finally recovered from their shock. Lu Yu walked forward politely and cupped his fists. "I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Greetings, Lord Holy King." Zhang Laoxi and the others also cupped their fists and even knelt down. "Greetings, Lord Holy King." On the mainland, the strong were respected, and this was evident. Lin Muyu frowned. She had no idea how to deal with the situation in front of her. She could only raise her eyebrows and said, "Get up, all of you. There's no need to be so polite, young Master Lu Yu." Lu Yu slowly stood up and said, "Lord, you have the cultivation of a holy king. I wonder which legendary person you are. What holy king realm?" Lin Muyu feigned ignorance and said, "I only killed a few giant vipers. Don't call me Lord Holy King. I'm just a lowly guard of the Li estate." Lu Yu. As if sensing that Lin Muyu was unwilling to reveal her identity, Lu Yu naturally did not say anything more. He only smiled and said, Then shall we continue on our way?" "And all right." Mounting her horse again, they did not travel very far before Lin Muyu could already sense a powerful energy coming from the distance. If there were no accidents, the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest was within 50 li. Thus, Lu Yu and the others had lost their ability to point the way. Moreover, their cultivations were not suitable for roaming in the White Leaves Forest. Not to mention those mysterious cultivators, even a random 5 or 6,000-year-old spirit beast would be enough to wipe out this group of people. "Young Master Lu Yu, do you know how to inscribe a heavenly tome?" Lin Muyu asked. "I'm currently learning. This lowly one's aptitude is lacking, so I have yet to succeed." Lu Yu said somewhat awkwardly. "Thus I gathered many people and asked my father to volunteer, disregarding his opposition to come to the White Leaves Forest." Saying this, Lu Yu took a deep breath and said, "Several hundred years ago, my ancestor was a marquis. It was an honor, but in our generation, it declined with each passing day. If I, Lu Yu, could bring back a few stone tablets from the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, perhaps I could write a human book, a spiritual book, or even an earthly book, allowing my clan to rise again." Lin Muyu said, "This time, many experts of the continent have found information about the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Many people have come to the White Leaves Forest, and many of them are murderers. With your strength, it is impossible for you to survive here. Although my sister and I can protect you for a while, we cannot protect you forever. Thus, I suggest that young Master Lu Yu return as soon as possible, lest you end up dying in a foreign land." His words were merciless, completely disregarding the face of Lu Yu, Zhang Laozi, and the others. In the past, Zhang Laozi would definitely have flown into a rage out of humiliation. But now, Zhang Laozi clearly knew that this young hunter was actually an expert on the level of the Holy King, so he naturally did not say anything more. The words of a true expert were the truth, worthy for the weak to learn. This had always been the principle since ancient times. But who could have imagined that although Lu Yu's cultivation was mediocre, the determination in his eyes could not be shaken? He clenched his fists and said, "Young Master Lin Yan, although Lu Yu knows that his aptitude is mediocre, but how can a man not struggle for his fate? If today, Lu Yu is a coward and returns without accomplishing anything, then I can only continue to be mediocre for the rest of my life. I'm not willing." Yes, the struggles of the weak were always looked down upon, but as long as they continued to struggle, there would be a day when the weak would become the strong. Lin Muyu was somewhat moved. She nodded and said, "Fine then, since young Master Lu Yu has already made up your mind, I won't say anything more. But, as long as we find the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest and obtain 1 or 2 stone tablets, you should immediately return to Shanglu County. I don't want to see you and your people die here. After all, we know each other." "Yes." Lu Yu clasped his hands and said, "As long as young Master Lin Yan can help me obtain a stone tablet, you will be the benefactor of our Lu clan. Let's go. Let's not talk about this anymore. We'll talk about it after we find the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest." Yes. The group carefully searched through the forest. A few more giant vipers appeared, but they were all easily killed by Lin Muyu. Because her movements were too fast and her martial spirit was also too fast, even with the cultivation of Lu Yu, Zhang Laozi, and the others, they still could not tell what Lin Muyu's martial spirit was. The difference in strength was too great. Just as the group circled around a lush grassland, the sound of hooves came from ahead. A group of people wearing metal armor and the insignia of the Iha kingdom appeared behind the forest. Furthermore, they were familiar people. They were people from northern Qis Huan. "Oh no," Zhang Laozi paused and said. "Young Master Lin Yan is the person who injured northern Qis Huan. He will definitely be recognized." Lin Muyu lightly said, "No, I masked my face that day. They only know that I am a hunter. Don't make it public." "Yes." Chapter 518. Although Huan of Northern Qi had one of his wrists cut off, he was now wearing a set of light golden armor. He even wore the insignia of the Iha kingdom's captaincy on his shoulder. The Northern Qi government was indeed very powerful in the Iha kingdom. They had easily allowed their second son to become captaincy. The corruption of their military system was evident. Lin Muyu was silent. She urged her horse and brought Qin Yin into the crowd of Zhang Laozi and the others without making a sound. At the same time, she slowly extended the spiritual pulse technique to investigate the strength of this group of people. Other than Huan of Northern Qi, there were also a few Kiliarchs of the Iha kingdom. Their strength was not weak. Among them, there were 3 who had a cultivation of the heaven realm. There were also a few hidden experts in the army who had a cultivation of the heaven realm. Although there were no experts of the divine domain in this group of people, in terms of battle strength, they were not weak. Moreover, just the formation of nearly 500 cavalrymen was already not easy to deal with. It was becoming more and more difficult to see through what Huan of Northern Qi was thinking. Did he want to rely on the army to steal all the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions from the forest? Too childish. Sometimes, numbers did not decide everything. At this time, Huan of Northern Qi had already led a group of soldiers forward. His eyes were filled with arrogance as he looked at Lu Yu and the others. He smiled coldly. "Who are you to dare enter the forbidden land of the Iha kingdom?" Lu Yu urged his horse forward and bowed respectfully. "I am the son of the governor of Shanglu County, Lu Zhuang. My name is Lu Yu. I brought the guards of the manor and lost my way in the White Leaves Forest. That is why I lost my way and entered the forbidden land." "People of Shanglu County?" Huan of Northern Qi's lips curled up. "The son of a governor of a county city? How interesting. Lu Yu, don't you know how to tell the direction according to the sunrise? You dare to use such a lie to brush me off. I think you must be tired of living." I am slow-witted. Young master, please investigate." "Really?" Huan of Northern Qi's cold gaze swept across the group of people behind Lu Yu one by one like he was looking at goods. Perhaps, in Huan of Northern Qi's eyes, Lu Yu and the others were not real people. They were just a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Suddenly, Huan of Northern Qi's gaze stopped on Lin Muyu and Qinyin. It was rare to see beautiful women like Qinyin, so he immediately recognized them. He couldn't help but laugh involuntarily. "Miss, do you still recognize me? We met once at the post house. It must be fate that brought us together in a place like this." Qinyin looked at him indifferently. She did not hide the disgust in her eyes as she said, "I don't know you." "You don't know him." Huan of Northern Qi refused to give up. He smiled. "It doesn't matter. If we get to know each other more, we'll naturally get to know each other." At this moment, a middle-aged commander of deep cultivation walked forward and said in a low voice, "Second Master, we shouldn't stay here for too long. Commander Ji and Commander Long's people should have already reached the White Leaves Forest. We need to find the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest before they do. I also heard that the commander has also sent people to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. We can't fall behind. As for that hunting girl, in my opinion, Second Master should be a little more patient. Don't let a moment of pleasure ruin the important matters." "That's right." Huan of Northern Qi nodded. "However, this group of people will still have to come with us." The commander was surprised. "Second Master, you mean?" Huan of Northern Qi smiled. "Lu Yu, your group doesn't have 50 people. That's too few. Once you encounter some powerful spiritual beasts, it will be difficult to protect yourself. I think it would be better for us to join forces. You can come with us to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. That way we can look after each other. What do you think?" Lu Yu had no other choice. He could only cup his hands and say, "I will listen to Second Master's orders." Huan of Northern Qi smiled. "Good. Let's go. Take your people and open the path in front. I'll take my people and bring up the rear." Yes. Lu Yu was in a difficult position. Huan of Northern Qi was clearly using his group as cannon fodder. The spiritual beasts in the depths of the White Leaves Forest were getting stronger and stronger. His 50 people were probably not enough to kill them all. Moreover, Lin Yan, a Holy King expert, had not said a word. It seemed that he was not certain of victory. After all, the other side had 500 people, and there was no lack of experts among them. Lin Muyu slowly urged his horse forward with the group. His face was grave. His thinking was very simple. If he and Qinyin acted together, they could indeed defeat the 500 Iha soldiers, but they would have to pay the price in blood. They might even be heavily injured. If they were injured before they even reached the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, they would have no strength left to deal with the Holy Domain experts that Qin Huan had brought with him. They were the true opponents. Moreover, Luolan might have also come, but she had not shown herself. They had to act, but they had to wait for an opportunity to kill these 500 people without suffering any losses. At this moment, he truly regretted letting Huan of Northern Qi escape last time. This kind of vengeful villain should have been killed cleanly with a single stroke of the sword. Thus, including Lin Muyu and Qinyin, the 40 or so people urged their horses forward. Behind them were Huan of Northern Qi and the other Iha soldiers, who were at daggers drawn. This made Lin Muyu and the others feel as if there was a thorn in their backs. The sky gradually darkened. After nightfall, the group lit torches and continued on their way through the night. Huan of Northern Qi decided to find a safe place to set up camp before they could stop and rest. It was not until late at night that a stone valley finally appeared in the White Leaves Forest. The valley was surrounded by huge rocks and was relatively safe. It was a good camp. Huan of Northern Qi pointed at the valley with his broken arm, but he found that he had no fingers, so he switched to his other arm. He extended his index finger and pointed into the distance. He said, "Let's set up camp here. The Iha army is camped inside. Lu Yu, lead your people and guard the entrance to the valley. The heavy responsibility of guarding the valley is left to you." "Yes, Second Master," Lu Yu replied respectfully. In terms of status, Huan of Northern Qi was the second young master of the Northern Qi Manor, which was like the sun in the sky. His status was like that of a marquis. Lu Yu, on the other hand, was only the son of a mere governor and the son of a declining family. One could imagine the difference between heaven and earth. No matter how unwilling Lu Yu was, he could only follow orders. Everyone entered the valley. Quan of Northern Qi's people took out the food on the backs of the warhorses and began to cook. Lu Yu's people also began to set up simple tents. Lin Muyu chose a place near the rocks to set up camp and set up the tent she had bought. She then raised a bonfire and used a steel pot to boil water. She then took out a piece of swanee meat from her cosmos bag and cut it up before throwing it into the pot. She added wild vegetables, oil, and salt. Then, she and Qin Yin sat around the bonfire and enjoyed the rare piece. Under the light of the fire, Qin Yin's pretty face appeared even more charming. Lin Muyu couldn't resist looking at her a few more times. She smiled and said, "Regardless of whether it's bringing Xiao Yin or Xiao Shi out, I always feel very lucky." "Why is that?" Qin Yin asked with a smile. "A feast for the eyes," Lin Muyu replied truthfully. Qin Yin couldn't help but smile. "Danger lurks everywhere here. Yet you still have the mood to tease me. Humph. What are you afraid of?" Lin Muyu spread her hands and looked at the light of the bonfires in the valley. "Everything is under control. There won't be any problems." "I also hope so." Not long after, the swanee meat was cooked and emitted a fragrant aroma. Lin Muyu filled a bowl with the meat and gave it to Qin Yin. Then he ate a bowl of meat himself to replenish his strength, and at the same time, he refined the spiritual energy in the swanee meat to improve his cultivation. Fortunately, Tang Xiaoxi had taught him the heart-cleansing mantra, so he would not be affected by the dry heat in the swanee meat. Deep into the night, the bonfire was still flickering, and in the warm tent, Lin Muyu sat with his legs crossed. Strands of Fuxi celestial power flowed around him. He had to cultivate this celestial power to become stronger. This was his secret weapon, allowing him to use the celestial power before stepping into the deity level. This was something no other cultivator could achieve. After Qin Yin finished cultivating, she lay down to rest. She rested her beautiful face on Lin Muyu's lap and breathed lightly. She was as gentle as a kitten. Lin Muyu couldn't sleep. Using the spirit pulse technique, he could sense that there were strands of aura spying on them. They were enemies, not friends. It wasn't until late at night that the aura from the spirit pulse technique finally approached them. Lin Muyu suddenly opened his eyes and shook Qin Yin's shoulder lightly. "Xiaoyin." Qin Yin opened her beautiful eyes and asked, "What's wrong?" "Spiritual beasts are coming to attack us." "Ah." Qin Yin immediately flipped up and grabbed the hilt of the heavenly sword, preparing to fight. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "Don't be nervous. I'll think of a way for these attackers to go around us and directly attack the Northern Qi Huan's army. But what should I do?" "Domain pressure." Lin Muyu's eyes were filled with confidence. "These attacking spiritual beasts should be between 5,000 and 10,000 years old. As long as I spread out the pressure of the Holy King realm and cover the surroundings of our camp, they will naturally go around and directly attack the Northern Qi Huan's people." At this time, Lin Muyu had already sat up straight. After a light shout, her body was surrounded by King's fighting flames. An invisible pressure spread out. Under Lin Muyu's mental control, it descended upon Lu Yu's camp. Immediately, the drowsy guards felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave and couldn't move. This pressure was something they couldn't resist. Fortunately, the pressure Lin Muyu released was actually a warning, not an attack. "What's wrong?" Lu Yu sat there, unable to move. He looked at Zhang Laoxi beside him. Zhang Laoxi was also dumbfounded. He muttered, "It should be Sir Lin Yan's holy domain pressure. Looks like something is going to happen." Oh, Lu Yu couldn't do anything. He could only watch the situation develop. In the darkness of the night, giant monkeys with golden patterns on their heads and bodies shrouded in flames appeared in the forest. They were as tall as 2 people, and there were 5 to 9 golden patterns on their heads. Each of them let out violent cries and made a lot of noise. As they approached the valley, a tyrannical pressure of the Saint Realm suddenly appeared in front of them, making them even more irritated. Flaming monkeys were a type of spiritual beast of the fire element. They were one of the natural controllers of the laws of fire. Chirp chirp, one by one, the flaming monkeys flew into a rage, but they didn't dare to provoke the holy domain pressure that Lin Muyu released. They could feel how powerful the owner of this power was, but the flaming monkeys weren't willing to give up on this attack. One by one, they scuttled up the mountain rocks. In the blink of an eye, streaks of fire appeared on the rock walls around the valley. A Iha soldier who was dozing opened one eye. After looking, he woke up with a start and shouted, "Oh no, the spiritual beasts are attacking." Chapter 519. What's wrong? Huan of Northern Qi suddenly woke up from his sleep. He crawled out of the tent and looked around. Flame monkeys. A chiliarch held a steel knife. Zhenqi frost swirled around the blade. He said, "They're all over 5,000 years old. Be careful, second master. Hide in the tent and don't come out. What's there to fear about mere flame monkeys?" Huan of Northern Qi lifted his sword and flipped onto his horse. He shouted, "Use your bows and arrows. Kill all the flame monkeys." "Yes. Protect the second master." A group of Iha soldiers all raised their shields and stood in front of Northern Qi. The archers pulled back their longbows and shot toward the group of flaming monkeys charging toward them. However, a fiery red aura appeared on the surface of the flaming monkey's skin. With a clang, most of the arrows were deflected. In the next moment, a few flaming monkeys in front had already raised their sharp claws and tore through the shields. They opened their mouths and bit into the necks of the soldiers behind them. Wretched cries immediately rang out. Bastards! A few of the more powerful chiliarchs trembled with anger. They raised their swords and slashed wildly. Perhaps only these heaven realm chiliarchs could stop the flame monkeys. Chirp chirp, chirp chirp. There were flame monkeys everywhere around the valley. There were at least 100 of them. Even the soldiers led by Huan of Northern Qi, who had high cultivation, could not withstand them. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the 500 people had been killed by the flame monkeys. For a moment, Huan of Northern Qi's face grew increasingly pale. Protect the second master. A heaven realm elite swung his sword horizontally and forced a fire monkey to retreat. The fire snake martial soul on the blade moved continuously, but two fire monkeys attacked from the left and right at the same time. Their sharp claws covered in flames pierced the heaven realm elite's abdomen and practically ripped out his intestines. He died a horrible death. General Liu. The surrounding soldiers were dumbfounded. They were scared out of their wits. We can't stop them. A chiliarch holding a spear shouted. Protect the second master and retreat. Let Liu Yu's people come in and stop the flame monkeys. These flame monkeys are a bunch of lunatics. Yes. The soldiers clustered around Northern Qi Huan as they retreated. The soldiers at the back howled as they were killed in the flames. The number of flame monkeys grew, far exceeding the imagination of Northern Qi Huan and the others. Damn it. Huan of Northern Qi's handsome face was now twisted. He growled. If you want to kill me, then don't blame me for being impolite. I will let you animals have a taste of the power of heaven and earth. As he spoke, Huan of Northern Qi suddenly raised the sword in his hand. Streaks of golden runes on the blade transformed into an earthy yellow light that shot into the sky. This time, the color was very rich. It was a mid-tier Earthbook embryonic sword. A blood-red vortex appeared in the sky, and the power of heaven and earth had already been activated. In the next moment, furious bolts of lightning rained down, and the purple light illuminated the dark night like it was daytime. Bang bang bang. This mid-tier Earthbook was a law of lightning. Bolts of furious lightning crashed into the crowd of flame monkeys. Wretched cries rang out, but the Iha Kingdom soldiers mixed in the crowd of monkeys were also not spared. Each of them was turned into a pile of charcoal before they could even cry out. The lightning raged on for nearly 10 seconds before stopping. There were already many dead and injured. The flames flickered. The flame monkeys had not all died, but they charged forward even more violently. Outside the valley, Lin Muyu raised her head to look at the bursts of lightning in the sky and said, Northern Qi Huan has used the heavenly book again. What a wastrel. Young Master Liu Yu, let's go quickly. Go. Liu Yu paused. Go where? To find the heavenly book forest. Lin Muyu smiled faintly. Northern Qi Huan's army was ambushed by the flame monkeys. They must have suffered heavy casualties, but the flame monkeys may not be able to kill all of his people. Once Northern Chi Huan leads the rest of his people out, he will definitely take his anger out on you. At that time, you won't be able to leave even if you want to. Okay, let's set off immediately. Pack up and leave this place. Lu Yu said loudly. Lin Muyu shook her head. Don't pack up. There's no time. Everyone, get on your horses and leave. Leave behind the tents and everything else. Your lives are more important. Yes. The sound of hooves echoed in the air as the group quickly left the ominous place. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, turned around to look at her tent and the steel pot. She felt it was a pity that she had to throw away the things she had just bought. Qin Yin seemed to see through his thoughts. She couldn't help but smile. Okay, after this, we'll just sleep outdoors in the Heavenly Book Forest. In any case, the temperature here isn't very cold. Let's go. The group hurriedly left, disappearing into the night. A few minutes later, a group of people led by Northern Chi Huan charged out of the valley. Almost all of them were injured. Northern Chi Huan's face was full of malevolence. Looking at the empty camp, he couldn't help but roar angrily. Where are they? Where are they? Lu Yu, you treacherous villain, don't let me see you again. No, when I return to Hundred Ridge City, I will definitely go to the commander and ask for an imperial edict to exterminate your entire Lu household of Shanglu County. Just you wait. On the side, the injured Kiliarchs were dumbfounded. They knew that this vicious and evil second young master was just a weakling who couldn't be helped. However, they were soldiers after all, and they had to obey orders. Gigi. The cries of the flaming monkeys came from the valley. Northern Chi Huan couldn't help but shiver. He said, let's go to the Heavenly Book Forest. We can't stay here any longer. Second young master. A Chiliarch wiped the blood from his face. We still have at least 100 brothers left in the valley to bring up the rear. Are we going to ignore them? We can't. The bigger picture is more important. If we can find those ancient Heavenly Book monoliths, their sacrifice will be worth it. Yes. The Chiliarch wanted to say something but stopped. He urged his horse to follow Northern Chi Huan. After galloping for several dozen meters, he said, Second young master just activated the mid-level earthly tomes. Other than killing a dozen flaming monkeys, he also killed nearly 50 of our brothers. Shut up. Northern Chi Huan's face was filled with anger. Those who accomplish great things do not bother with trifles. If I hadn't activated the earthly tomes, I'm afraid it would have been very difficult for our group to escape. The families of those warriors who died in battle will naturally be compensated by the Iha Kingdom's treasury. You don't need to worry about that. Yes, second young master. A trace of helplessness appeared on the Kiliarch's face. As dawn approached, the east gradually began to brighten. The visibility in the White Leaves forest also increased. Amidst the messy sound of horse hooves, Lin Muyu, Qin Yin Lu Yu, and the others madly galloped for several dozen li. The surrounding scenery also became increasingly lush, like a scene of hundreds of flowers blooming. Along the way, they encountered a few flaming monkeys, but they were all scared away by Lin Muyu's pressure of domain, saving them from unnecessary trouble. Further ahead was a hilly area. In the distance, they could even see that other than the lush forest on the hills, there were also scattered stone monoliths that glowed with a faint light. Is that the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest? Northern Chi Huan asked excitedly. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. It should be. Those stone monoliths have a small amount of spiritual energy, but it's not safe here. There's a very powerful chi up ahead. It seems to be guarding these stone monoliths. What is it? Lu Yu's entire body trembled. He knew that since Lin Muyu said it was very powerful, it was definitely much more powerful than the giant viper. I don't know. Lin Muyu shook her head. Lu Yu narrowed his eyes and said, Someone scout the path. We'll go to that hill and obtain the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions. This trip will not have been in vain. Yes. Everyone was somewhat excited. After experiencing life and death, they had come to the extreme depths of the White Leaves forest for the sake of these stone monoliths. If they could find the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions, they would be able to account for themselves when they returned. The dozen or so guards wielded their swords and spears and spread out on their horses, moving forward one step at a time. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin stood on either side of Lu Yu. They could not let this young master of Shanglu County die. Otherwise, this group of people would be like a group of dragons without a leader. Sooner or later, they would all die in this dense forest. At this moment, the earth suddenly began to tremble. Buzz buzz, strands of energy also traveled into their ears. Lin Muyu could not help but frown and say, "Everyone be careful. Something is coming. Everyone in front, retreat." But before the scouting guards could completely retreat, suddenly, a wild beast's roar came from the forest. They saw a huge beast charge through a few giant trees. The beast's entire body was covered in blood-red fur. Like a ball of flame, it swept over, and 3 guards did not even have time to scream before they were cut in half. My heavens, what is that? Qin Yin was dumbfounded. She suddenly pulled out the heaven-suppressing sword, and the Saint Beast's soul matrix circled around the blade. At the same time, the holy power of the god-binding chains encircled the blade. Starlight constantly flew up, causing the beast's skin cloak behind her to flutter. Roar, roar. The huge beast roared and opened its bloody mouth to chew on a corpse. It chewed on the corpse that had just died, and its teeth were full of minced meat. A pair of emotionless eyes occasionally looked up at Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and the others in the distance. It was eating people. Moreover, there were a total of 10 golden lines on its head, which was a little scary. Behemoth, it's a behemoth. Zhang Laoxi's face was a little twisted. I have seen this kind of spirit beast in the Book of 10,000 Beasts. This is a legendary spirit beast that originally existed in the legends. I did not expect it to really exist. Lu Yu was also shocked, but the shock he received was twofold. First, the appearance of the behemoth made him feel despair. Second, the treasure sword in Qin Yin's hand was obviously not an ordinary sword. Moreover, this beautiful girl's golden martial soul was clearly the same as the god-binding chains recorded in the Book of 10,000 Beasts. This girl's identity was already obvious. She was the Empress Qin Yin. Lu Yu only felt that the world was spinning, and he could not accept everything in front of him. If this girl was Qin Yin, then the identity of the young man beside her was even more obvious. Other than the number 1 enemy of the Iha nation, Lin Muyu, who else could have such strength? Chapter 520. In the blink of an eye, this 5-meter-tall beast had already eaten half of a corpse. As if it had eaten its fill, it wiped its bloody mouth and raised its head to look at Qin Yin and the others. Although the behemoth looked like a wild beast, it seemed to be far more intelligent than spiritual beasts of the same level. Its pair of dark eyes flickered with cunning. Ho! It stood up and retreated several steps, confronting Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. However, it did not attack, only roaring angrily. What is it doing? Lu Yu asked in shock. Qin Yin indifferently said, "It's probably calling for companions. There should be other behemoths here." Clang. Lin Muyu quickly pulled out the stellar sword and said, "Then let's finish this battle quickly. Don't give it the chance to call for companions." "It's too late." Qin Yin pointed into the distance. Trees were constantly being knocked down in the forest, accompanied by a faint roar. Another behemoth appeared, and it was a 13,000-year-old behemoth. It was much stronger than the 10,000-year-old behemoth in front of them. Qin Yin didn't want to kill it. "It's over, it's over." The behemoth's angry roars contained the pressure of a sacred beast. It immediately caused Zhang Laoxi to dismount from his horse and kneel on the ground. His entire body trembled as he said, "Two 10,000-year sacred beasts, we're dead. It's these 10,000-year sacred beasts that are guarding the heavenly tome monolith forest. This really is an ominous place. It's over, it's all over." If Zhang Laoxi was like this, most of the other guards also lost their will to fight. One by one, they dismounted from their horses and stood there with their weapons hanging down. They did not even have the courage to raise their heads to look at the behemoth. "Humph, these weak chickens." Lin Muyu could not help but snicker to herself. In a clear voice she said, "Xiao Yin, you deal with this 10,000-year-old behemoth. Leave the 13,000-year one to me. Let's see who gets rid of it first." "All right." Qin Yin readily agreed. Lin Muyu understood Qin Yin's strength all too well. She had the purest Qin bloodline flowing in her veins, and the power of the true dragon god binding chains was not inferior to her own star god binding chains in the slightest. In addition, after cultivating the dragon-slaying art, her strength had become even more tyrannical. A 10,000-year-old saint beast was completely no match for this empire empress. Qin Yin's slender legs slightly parted as she stepped onto the grass. Both her hands gripped the hilt of her sword. And with a light shout, the god-binding chains began to revolve around her body and the blade of her sword. She took the initiative to attack first. The blade of the sword suddenly shook, and with a ding, it actually transformed into a sound wave that rushed towards the 10,000-year-old behemoth. With a whong, it swept past, and the weeds on the ground were all pulverized. Meanwhile, the behemoth let out a miserable howl as a small piece of the spiritual energy astral chi on the surface of its body was already shattered. In the forest of heavenly tome monoliths, it had probably rarely met a worthy opponent, so how could it endure such humiliation? With a furious roar, it charged straight at Qin Yin, but it also played right into Qin Yin's hands. A god-binding chain burst out from the ground. Bang! The lower part of the behemoth's body was struck by the golden energy, and with a miserable howl, it fell to the ground. Qin Yin's cold sword was coming straight at it. On the other side, Lin Muyu flew out, charging straight at the other behemoth. The stars on the surface of her body revolved, and the blade of her sword began to emit rays of light from the starlight god-binding chains. She faced it head-on with the first appearance of starlight, asking for directions first. Roar, roar. This 13,000-year-old behemoth was clearly not that simple. Its two sharp claws were filled with astral winds, and it smashed towards Lin Muyu's longsword. With a pung, a heavy rebounding force came from the sword, causing Lin Muyu to be secretly shocked. A 13,000-year-old spiritual beast was indeed very strong. In terms of strength, it was already completely not beneath her. The behemoth's speed was faster than Lin Muyu's imagination. With an angry roar, it leaped up like lightning and spread out its claws, looking like it was going to tear the tiny human Lin Muyu into pieces in one fell swoop. However, Lin Muyu's speed was even faster, and her strength was also more dexterous. She raised her left palm lightly, and a ribbon of starlight slowly spread out. The power of the starlight chain lingered around it, and she used the falling star steps to flash past the behemoth's armpit. At the same time, the thick power of the starlight chain locked onto the behemoth's waist. Pung, pung, pung. The power of the stars on the starlight ribbon continued to explode, and suddenly, the astral energy on the surface of the behemoth's body was continuously blown to pieces. Blood gradually appeared on the hard skin of the behemoth. It was completely unable to block Lin Muyu's current attack power. Thinking about it, Lin Muyu's strength had already reached the advanced stage of the divine trace realm. In addition to the support of the twin martial souls, star arts, 7 luminaries profound energy, and other peak martial arts, his current strength was roughly equivalent to a 18,000 to 20,000-year-old holy beast. Therefore, he was naturally in an invincible position against this 13,000-year-old behemoth. Roar, roar, roar. With its whole body full of pain, the behemoth felt even more ashamed. It turned around and opened its mouth wide to spit out a ball of raging flames. However, there was no one in front of it. Instead, there was a sharp collision of energy coming from above. When the behemoth raised its head, it saw Lin Muyu's sword with both hands falling down. 5 mountains descend from the heavens. Bang! The star sword was so sharp that it forcibly cut into the behemoth's face. With a crack sound, one of its left fangs was cut off. Blood splattered everywhere, and it was extremely embarrassing. Roar, roar! The behemoth roared angrily and wanted to fight back. However, when it lowered its head, it saw Lin Muyu quietly standing in front of its belly, with mysterious icy spirit star power lingering around his left fist. In an instant, the behemoth was filled with endless fear. This tiny human in front of it was actually so terrifying. He had been smiling since the beginning of the battle, and that was a calm smile. In other words, he did not take this holy beast seriously at all. At this moment, what the behemoth thought of was not anger after being humiliated, but fear. An inexplicable fear. This human strength was enough to destroy it. At this moment, it had no choice but to believe it. Buzz! The ice spirit star power was fully charged in a second. Lin Muyu leaped into the air and punched the demon beast's abdomen. It was the fifth form of the star arts, icy jade snow. Bang! The heavy punch landed on the behemoth's belly. Immediately, a dense chill spread in all directions. Endless frost turned the lush green grassland into a harsh winter. But Lin Muyu's control of power was getting better every day. The icy jade snow only froze everything within a 10-meter radius. It did not hurt Qin Yin, Lu Yu, and the others who were far away. The behemoth's roar had already stopped, and its huge body slowly turned into a huge ice brick. Lin Muyu landed lightly on the ground. Her clothes fluttered in the wind, and she looked extremely ethereal. She held her sword upside down and lightly touched the behemoth's thigh with the hilt. Immediately, the huge ice sculpture quickly scattered into pieces. Just like that, a 13,000-year-old holy beast was slaughtered by Lin Muyu with just 3 moves of the star arts without being able to fight back. Looking back at Qin Yin, she slowly pulled out the heaven-suppressing sword from the throat of the other behemoth. The true dragon god binding chains circled around her, extremely dazzling. She and Lin Muyu had actually finished off their opponents together. For a moment, Lu Yu, Zhang Laosi and the others wanted to die. They all knew how powerful the behemoth was, but they could never have imagined that this young man and woman could so easily finish off 2 behemoths that were over 10,000 years old. Lu Yu looked at Qin Yin with even more respect. He could more or less confirm Qin Yin's identity. She had changed her name to Lin Yin, and Lin Muyu had changed her name to Lin Yan. Both of them had the god-binding chain's martial soul. Was this not enough to explain everything? Lin Muyu grabbed the 2 behemoth spirit stones and threw them into her universe pouch. She then raised her eyebrows and said, "The 2 behemoths guarding the heavenly tome monolith have already been taken care of. Lu Yu, quickly take your people to retrieve the monolith. If you're late, it will be too late." "Yes, young master." Lu Yu recovered from his shock and urged his horse. "Brothers, follow me to retrieve the monolith inscriptions." The group of guards was especially excited as well. They followed Lu Yu and charged towards the small hill. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at each other and smiled. They had to be good people to the end, so they leaped onto their horses and followed. They had to protect this group of people, so that they wouldn't be killed by something at the last step. The hill was overflowing with spring, and the small hill was littered with stone tablets. The inscriptions on the tablets were actually densely packed divine characters. Oracle bone script. There were about 10 such stone tablets on the entire hill. Lin Muyu walked forward, and her gaze rested on the stone tablet in front of her. She began to read the inscriptions word by word. Frost. Monsters and demons run amok in the bitterly cold purgatory. The boundless chill devours all good conscience. Souls wail, heaven and earth weep. The endless cycle of reincarnation is about to be broken. The gates of purgatory open, and the chill of death freezes everything in the mortal world. Icy snowflakes dance on the ground. A biting cold winter. Just as he finished reading the inscriptions, his spiritual sense seemed to be attracted to the stone tablet. In the blink of an eye, the divine characters were imprinted in his mind. With a clang, it was as if some kind of restriction had been opened, and the stone tablet in front of him quickly crumbled into a pile of stone powder. The spiritual force contained in the stone tablet also dissipated rapidly. "What's going on?" Qin Yin asked with her mouth agape. Lin Muyu took a few steps back. Her face was slightly pale, and she felt a little tired. She said, "I seem to have mastered the inscriptions in this heavenly tome. All the words are imprinted in my mind. It's actually so magical." Qin Yin could not help but smile. "I want to learn too. You just need to carefully read one of the stone tablets. When you understand all the divine characters, you should be able to master it." At the side, Lu Yu hurriedly said, "Young Master Lin Yan, Miss Lin Yin, don't go and read the divine text. Once you read it, only one person can grasp it. The power of heaven and earth will circulate, and only you alone can write this divine text to activate the power of heaven and earth." Ah! Lin Muyu was aghast. "There's such a thing?" "That's right. These heavenly tome inscriptions all have restrictions placed on them." Lu Yu seemed to know a lot. Lin Muyu's brow furrowed. "How do you know?" Lu Yu was somewhat helpless. My ancestor was once a noble, so he collected an ancient book that vaguely recorded some matters regarding the heavenly tome forest of monoliths. This heavenly tome forest of monoliths was carved by God Emperor Fuxi and 100 disciples in the White Leaves Forest. Every single stone tablet has been imbued with a divine power restriction. It's fine to copy and study, but if one reads it, the divine power will give the exclusive right to use the divine characters to the predestined person. As he spoke, Lu Yu looked at the nearby stone tablets and said, "Unfortunately, the stone tablets here only record the inscriptions of spiritual books." Spiritual book level? Chapter 521. Lu Yu explained, "Look, every stone tablet on this hill has a spirit character carved at the very bottom. This also means that the power contained in the tablet inscriptions can at most create a supreme spiritual tome. It is impossible to create an earthly tome. This is determined by the laws of the world." What a pity, what a pity. Lu Yu gazed into the depths of the heavenly tome forest. This is as far as I can go. If I go any deeper, I'm afraid there will be even more ferocious guardian spiritual beasts or cultivators. In the depths of the heavenly tome forest, there are definitely more heavenly tomes or even divine tomes. Lin Muyu's heart skipped a beat. She could not help but be secretly happy. If there really were heavenly tomes or divine tomes, that would be great. In the current empire, no one could write a heavenly tome. Would she be the first? On the side, Zhang Laosi was directing the guards to move the heavy stone tablets. His face was full of smiles. "Young master, perhaps we can beg young master Lin Yan and Lady Lin Yin to bring us into the depths of the heavenly tome forest. That way, we can obtain the earthly level heavenly tome monolith inscriptions." No, Lu Yu slowly shook his head. Heavenly tomes are treasures that can only be found by luck. To be able to come this far has already been a burden to young master and lady. If we go any deeper, we will definitely be a burden to the two nobles. So, we can only go this far. Move the 3 stone tablets and immediately return to Shanglu County. Yes. Lin Muyu looked at Lu Yu with praise. This Lu Yu was truly different from those hedonistic sons. He was sensible and knew when to advance and retreat. This kind of character was very rare. At this time, Qinin called out from the distant stone tablet. "Brother Yu, come and teach me. There are a few words that I don't recognize." Damn. Lin Muyu walked over helplessly. She did not look at the full text of the inscriptions, only at the few words that Qinin had said. Her finger pressed on an oracle bone inscription. Her delicate brows furrowed. "Brother, look, this divine character that looks like a cat. What is it? I don't recognize it." "What do you mean it looks like a cat?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. She walked forward to take a look and said, "This is the word cauldron, the word cauldron of the shattered cauldron realm." "Oh, what about this? Cow, look at how much it looks like a cow's head." "Buffed, it's not that it looks like a cow. It's just that this divine text is an ancient hieroglyph. In any case, it's a cow." "Oh, Xiaoyin knows." As she spoke, Qinin suddenly froze. It was as if her entire body had been summoned. A faint orange light from the stone tablet seeped into her forehead. That was the effect of divine power entering her beer. In the blink of an eye, the stone tablet also shattered. Presumably, Qinin had also learned a divine character. However, Lin Muyu really wasn't sure what was so mystical about it. Did it mean that learning this divine character would greatly increase the chances of completing the book? If that was the case, then she would have to study a bit more in the heavenly tome monolith forest. However, Lin Muyu could already clearly feel that after breaking the seal on the monolith, the strength of her spiritual soul would be consumed by quite a bit. Thus, learning the heavenly tome monolith inscriptions was not that simple. It was impossible to study endlessly. If one's spiritual soul was full, learning 10 spiritual tomes would be enough to exhaust it. If it was an earthly tome or a heavenly tome, then it would probably consume even more spiritual soul energy. As expected, after learning this divine character, Qin revealed a trace of exhaustion. She retreated several steps and leaned against Lin Muyu's chest. Holding her forehead, she smiled and said, What's wrong with me?" She did not cultivate the spirit vein technique, so the strength of her spiritual soul was naturally far from comparable to Lin Muyu's. It's nothing. You'll be fine after resting for a while, Lin Muyu said gently. At this moment, Lu Yu had already instructed the guards to pull up the third heavenly tome monolith inscription. He wanted to take away 3 monolith inscriptions. Moreover, he did not dare to copy them, afraid that there would be some inaccuracies. Moreover, many of the monoliths on the hill had already been eroded by the passage of millions of years. Only half of the inscriptions remained. It was not easy for him to find 3. Around noon, the 3 monoliths were finally tied to the backs of the more robust warhorses. Everyone descended the hill, and Lu Yu naturally prepared to bid farewell to Lin Muyu. Young Master Lin Yan, are you going to continue deeper into the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest? Yes, I want to see what the Heavenly Tome and Divine Tome are like. Then, I wish you good luck. Lu Yu clasped his hands and said respectfully, on this journey, it is all thanks to young Master and Lady Lin Yan's care. Otherwise, Lu Yu would have long since died at the hands of spiritual beasts and evil men. You're welcome. I saw injustice on the road and drew my sword to help. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. But just at this moment, the sound of hooves came from the distance. There was also someone yelling, they're over there. Kill them and capture them. Don't let that despicable Lu Yu escape. It was the voice of Northern Chi's Huan. He's really haunting us. Qin Yin frowned slightly. That's right. Lin Muyu slowly unsheathed her longsword and said, since we've already entered the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, there's no need to be polite. Young Master Lu Yu, I will help you resolve your final worries. Lu Yu was stunned. Young Master Lin Yanyu. Lin Muyu smiled slightly, her eyes filled with killing intent. Some people just wanted to die. If they did not fulfill their wishes, they would not be righteous. Buddha does not help others, I will help myself. Amidst the sound of hooves, Huan of Northern Qi arrived with dozens of cavalry. All of them seemed to be injured. It looked like they had encountered some spiritual beasts on the way. Huan of Northern Qi's face was filled with a twisted light. He extended a finger and angrily said, Lu Yu, you despicable person. You abandoned me and ran off by yourself. Little bastard, today, I will not let you leave the White Leaves Forest alive. As he spoke, Huan of Northern Qi's gaze suddenly fell on the monolith on the back of the horse beside Lu Yu. His entire body trembled as he said, good, so you've already found the Heavenly Tome monolith inscriptions. Lu Yu was a good person, and still did not want to offend Huan of Northern Qi. He clasped his hands and said, second young master, I am a coward by nature, so I left first. I hope that second young master does not take offense. Lu Yu did not mean any disrespect. Nonsense. Huan of Northern Qi's eyes were filled with greed. Someone go, chop off Lu Yu's head and take away their monolith. Also, he then looked at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin and said, I want that woman. I want her alive. No one is allowed to hurt her. I want to bring her back to Bailing City and make her my Northern Qi Huan's woman. Qin Yin couldn't help but laugh in anger. Huan of Northern Qi, who do you think you are to be so arrogant? What did you say? Huan of Northern Qi had clearly not expected this young girl from a hunter family to say such things. However, the aura that seeped out of Qin Yin's body was not something a young girl from a hunter family could have. It was the aura and dignity of a ruler. Clang. The Heavenly Tome sword left its sheath. Qin Yin had already decided to personally take care of this scum. Oh no, that is... A chiliarch behind Huan of Northern Qi hurriedly rubbed his eyes and carefully looked at the outline of the Heavenly Tome sword. Could this sword be the national treasure of the empire? The Empress's sword, the Heavenly Tome sword? Qin Yin smiled faintly. You have good eyes. However, you will all die. As she spoke, Qin Yin had already flown out. She could imagine how many innocent girls had been trampled upon by scum like Huan of Northern Qi. As the former ruler of the continent, she had the authority to sentence Huan of Northern Qi to death. You don't. Huan of Northern Qi had just raised his longsword, and had not had time to gather Zhenqi when the Heavenly Tome sword pressed against his chest. Before the blade had even entered his body, a golden dragon-shaped energy had already pierced his heart. Plop! Huan of Northern Qi's chest was instantly pierced through. Without a drop of blood, Qin Yin gracefully somersaulted back to Lin Muyu's side. This time Lin Muyu did not show mercy. The heavenly tome forest was filled with power. Qin Huan's people had come, and perhaps Luolan had also come. Letting this group of people go would only create unnecessary trouble for herself. Her left hand quietly and gently opened behind her. Strands of thick, icy spirit star power surged. In the next moment, Lin Muyu leaped up. Like a bolt of lightning, she flew through the crowd of Northern Qi's army. After a few zigzags, she left behind streaks of frost on the ground. The power of the fifth move of the stellar formula, icy jade snow, slowly began to spread. When Lin Muyu flipped onto her horse, the dozens of people behind her all turned into fragments of ice and fell to the ground. They had died a horrible death. Shoo! Luyu could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. His heart was in turmoil. Was this young General Lin Muyu of the four heroes of Lanyan, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning? The famous general who dared to challenge the venerable Luo Lan. The famous general who tore apart Qianfeng's dreams of dominating the continent with a single move on the wildfire plains? There was a saying that a general's success was built on the bones of 10,000 people. Lin Muyu had acted too quickly and decisively. On this day, Luyu experienced for the first time what it meant to be swift and decisive. It was the first time he saw a true method of killing. Lin Muyu held the reins and said, "Xiaoyin, shall we continue?" Qinin nodded and smiled warmly. "Yes. Young master, please wait a moment," Luyu suddenly called out. When Lin Muyu and Qinin both turned to look, Luyu dismounted from his horse and knelt on the ground. He cupped his hands and said in a slightly trembling voice, "Luyu of Shanglu County has an audience with the Empress and Commander Yu. I, Luyu, will always be waiting in Shanglu County, waiting for the Empire's army to recover Lingnan. I, Luyu, swear that I will never be an enemy of the Qin Empire. If I break this oath, I will be killed by both humans and gods." Qinin smiled and raised her hand. "Young Master Lu, you need not stand on ceremony. Get up. I hope you can walk out of the White Leaves Forest safely. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. Then shall we go?" "Yes, go. Be careful." "Yes." Although their identities had been exposed, Lin Muyu and Qinin felt even more at ease. There would definitely be many people like Luyu. The Empire's army would re-enter the Lingnan region and reclaim their lost territories. This day would not be too far away. Lin Muyu knew that everything he was doing now was for that moment. He was doing it for a hearty battle of revenge. He wanted to kill Luolan, Qin Yi, and Long Qianlin. He wanted to avenge his dead friends and family. Chapter 522. In the end, after Lu Yu and the others left, Lin Muyu and Qinin wandered around the edge of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest and lost their way a few times. The entire forest was like a massive, profound array. They were clearly walking in one direction, but after a while, they would return to their starting point, which made them vexed. "Be careful." After nightfall, Qinin suddenly pulled on Lin Muyu's arm. They could feel the earth shaking in front of them. A 5-meter-tall behemoth slowly walked over. It seemed to be the guardians of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest's edge, which proved that the two of them had not yet truly entered the forest. Just what's going on? Lin Muyu furrowed her brow. It seems like we can't get out of here anymore. We've been wandering around this place since the afternoon. Qinin looked at the last sliver of the setting sun on the horizon and said, "Big brother, you don't worry. I can feel a massive light screen array under our feet. Perhaps it's just an illusion brought about by the sunlight. When night falls, we can try again." Amen. Qinin specialized in the law of light, so she was naturally much more sensitive to the energy of light than Lin Muyu. As a result, she could clearly see through the light array, but Lin Muyu could not. The two of them herded the warhorses to the side and started a fire to cook. Since they had lost the steel pot, they could only cook by barbecuing. Fortunately, there was still some oil and salt in the cosmos sack. Not long after, the swanny meat skewered on the stellar swords began to sizzle. Not long after, a fragrant aroma filled the air, stirring their appetite. Lin Muyu gave some of the meat to Qinin, and the two of them ate with the water from their water skins. After finishing off the 3 pieces of meat, they suddenly heard a jie-jie sound from above. He hurriedly raised his head to look, and as far as his eyes could see, he saw a black shadow circling in the air. It seemed to be an eagle. Frowning, Lin Muyu indifferently said, "Perhaps we've already been targeted." Qin Yin was startled. "Perhaps it's a wild eagle?" "Not necessarily." Lin Muyu whistled, and immediately, the treading snow warhorse rushed out of the forest upon hearing the whistle. It stood by its master's side and snorted, as if it had not eaten its fill. Lin Muyu gently stroked the warhorse's head and said, "Xiao Yin, shall we try to enter the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest again?" After who knew how many times, the two of them urged their horses towards the depths of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Not long after, under the illumination of the moonlight, a small valley path appeared in front of them. Immediately, Qin Yin was somewhat astonished. She said, "The last time we came here, there was no valley here. As expected, this profound formation only activates when the sun shines. At night, it reveals its true topography." Lin Muyu inwardly sighed with sorrow. It was no wonder that no one had entered the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest for over 10,000 years. The spiritual beasts here were extremely strong, and the majority of humans would choose to enter the danger zone during the day. If they came during the day, without the illumination of the moon, they would probably not even be able to find the true entrance to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. After entering the valley, under the moonlight, stone steels appeared sporadically in the fields, suffused with the faint radiance of the stars. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin looked at them one by one, and discovered that the Heavenly Tome Monolith inscriptions here still had the word Spirit inscribed on it. The stone steels here were still only spiritual books. Suddenly, Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique detected strands of qi behind them. After a shudder, she said in a low voice, "Xiao Yin, there are people coming. Dismount and lead the horse to hide for a moment. There are quite a few people coming." "Oh." Qin Yin dismounted and, together with Lin Muyu, led the horse to the soft grassland and hid in the nearby thicket. Fortunately, there were no overly strong spiritual beasts here, or else their hiding place would definitely be exposed. Qin Yin and Lin Muyu had both cultivated the beast taming technique, so they could naturally order the warhorses to not make any noise. As a result, the two warhorses obediently went to eat the grass, while the two masters hid in the thicket. The sounds of crickets could be heard, and the moonlit night in the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest was unexpectedly unspeakably serene. On the small path in the valley, the intermittent sound of horse hooves could be heard. A large group of people appeared in the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. From a distance, a young man dressed in golden armor was surrounded by a large group of people, his hand pressed against a broadsword. It was Qin Huan, the son of Qin Yi, the ruler of the Iha country, and one of the 7 marshals of the Iha country. At this moment, Qin Huan's face was filled with excitement. His gaze fell on the stone tablets around him, and he said with a smile, "The Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. It really is the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. There are so many Heavenly Tome Monolith models." To the side, a middle-aged sacred domain expert wearing a purple robe smiled and said, "Your Highness, this time, our trip has not been in vain. However, as far as I know, this is still only the outskirts of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. The stone inscriptions here were all left behind by a few disciples of God Emperor Fuxi. They are all human books and spiritual books, and cannot be considered precious treasures. If we go any deeper, we will probably be able to see earthly tomes, heavenly tomes, and even divine tomes." "Yes." Qin Huan excitedly nodded his head. "Commander Yi, tell the people behind us to follow closely. Don't encounter any more behemoth beasts. Otherwise, I'm afraid that many people will die. We can't afford any more losses." "Yes." The middle-aged man called Commander Yi clasped his hands. "Yes, your subordinate will immediately do as you say." He let out a soft whistle, and immediately, the air responded with the cry of a falcon. As expected, the falcon was raised by this Commander Yi. Looking at the falcon circling in the air, he lowered his head and said, "Your Highness, the godly hunter told me that 2 people entered the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, dressed as hunters. I don't know where they are now. What should we do?" "2 hunters?" Qin Huan furrowed his brow. "Hunters actually managed to enter the White Leaves Forest and not die. Aren't they a little too lucky?" Commander Yi faintly smiled. The laws of the natural world are like steel. Perhaps it's because the strength of these two hunters is too weak, to the point that spiritual beasts like the giant viper and the behemoth beasts that have cultivated for many years simply do not care about them. Sometimes the minds of spiritual beasts are also very proud. They are not willing to eat just anyone. So that's how it is. Then there's no need to worry about it. Qin Huan gripped the hilt of his sword and smiled. Let's continue forward. If we see these two hunters, we'll deal with them with a single strike. The Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest is the Iha country's treasure. Besides us, we can't let anyone else covet it. Yes. Commander Yi clasped his hands, his gaze cold. It's said that the 7 world palaces have also sent people to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Some people even saw the traces of the venerable immortal Luolan descending the mountain. If the 7 world palaces and the Iha country are fighting over the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, what should we do? The 7 world palaces. A vicious glint appeared in Qin Huan's eyes. The venerable immortal Luolan has always taken 20% of the revenue of our Iha country's treasury and used it to build the magnificent and marvelous 7 world palaces. However, he has never accepted Royal Father's invitation to leave the mountain. Even when the demons have slaughtered their way to the city gates, he has only sent disciples to assist in battle. I really don't know what Luolan is thinking. Now that he's been concealing his strength and biding his time, he actually has designs on the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. We have no choice but to guard against him. Yes. Commander Yi said. We'll move quickly and seize the Heavenly Tomes and Divine Tomes before the 7 world palaces do. Be careful. There are definitely protectors here. And they'll only get stronger and stronger. Yes. In the grass, dew slowly gathered on her shoulders. A praying mantis cautiously crawled over Qin Yin's fragrant shoulder and clothes. She gave a faint smile and did not harm it. Perhaps even the praying mantis could feel this girl's natural amiability. It did not seem afraid in the slightest. Lin Muyu saw this and felt a little moved. Qin Yin had always been a carefree and worry-free girl. If she were not embroiled in the war between the Empire and the Iha country, she would probably be even happier. At this moment, Qin Yin's beautiful eyes stared at the distant Qin Huan and the others. So many people. Qin Huan has brought at least 1,000 people into the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. There's no lack of divine domain or heavenly realm experts among them. Our situation is getting more and more passive. Lin Muyu asked, who is this Commander Yi? Qin Yin clearly had a clearer understanding of the Iha country's intelligence. She lowered her voice and said, Yi Xuanhuan, an expert who cultivates deep in the mountains. It's said that he's an extremely dissolute cultivator, but his talent is extraordinary and his cultivation is astonishing. Half a year ago, the Jinan prince, Qin Yi, personally asked Yi Xuanhuan to come out of seclusion and help him. Afterwards, Yi Xuanhuan was made the commander of the Iha country's heavenly army and was ordered to build a new army of 100,000 people. Now Yi Xuanhuan's position in the Iha country is equal to Long Qianlin, Ji Yao, Man Ning and the others. So he's Yi Xuanhuan. Lin Muyu frowned. This Yi Xuanhuan was very strong. The ripples from the spirit vein technique were incomparably strong. Moreover, he seemed to be very confident. He did not restrain his Saint Qi at all, and even the pressure lingered around his body at all times. Let's make a detour and get away from this group of people. We'll be the first to enter the depths of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Qin Yin blinked. There's no rush. Lin Muyu suddenly wrapped her arms around her shoulders and said, let's wait a little longer. Immediately, Qin Yin's nose was filled with Lin Muyu's manly scent. She could not help but feel her heart palpitate. Her small face blushed as she looked at Lin Muyu and asked, wait a moment, then what do we do now? Her rosy cheeks were truly too beautiful. With just a glance, Lin Muyu's heart could not help but sway. In her heart, she actually felt like she was taking her girlfriend out to play. Yes, it had been more than 4 years since she had arrived in the Shattered Cauldron realm. In order to survive, Lin Muyu had walked step by step to where he was today. His thinking had also been influenced by the hierarchy of the Shattered Cauldron realm, and he felt that Qin Yin was a high and mighty empress that could not be overstepped. But at this moment, Lin Muyu realized that if the problem was a little simpler, and Qin Yin was just his girlfriend, perhaps the two of them would be much more at ease. Looking at Qin Yin's beautiful eyes that were filled with hope, he faintly smiled and lowered his head to lightly kiss Qin Yin's red lips. As soon as he touched them, he softly said, "We can't do anything, because there's a very strong aura rapidly approaching from the depths of the monolith forest. If Qin Huan and his group want to obtain the heavenly tome, it definitely won't be that easy. We just have to wait and see." Oh. Qin Yin's face blushed red. She raised her arms to embrace Lin Muyu's neck and lightly kissed him on the cheek. Afterwards, she quietly lay down in the grass and watched everything in the distance. Chapter 523. Tuck, tuck, tuck. With the sound of hooves, a streak of fire appeared in the depths of the grassland. In the blink of an eye, a knight holding a long sword enshrouded in fire appeared under the moonlight. He was dressed in pure black armor, and his cloak fluttered in the wind. However, his face was truly unflattering. Under the illumination of the moonlight, it was a face that had already rotted for a long time. Even the warhorse he rode was half-rotted. No, strictly speaking, it was not a warhorse, but a beast with a body similar to a warhorse. Its entire body was covered in fiery red fur, and its roar was powerful. Under the moonlight, this knight charged straight at Qin Huan and the others. Without saying a word, the war beast beneath him charged forward like lightning. With a sweep of his longsword, two of Qin Huan's subordinates fell off their horses. What the hell is this? After Qin Huan saw the assailant, he could not help but tremble. Pointing his sword at him, he said, Are you a human or a ghost?" Jie, this death knight, let out a breath of turbid air. Without saying a word, he only quietly stared at Qin Huan, Yi Xuanhuan, and the others. His longsword slowly rose, his meaning clear. If this group of people wanted to overstep this boundary, they would have to kill him or be killed by him. Yi Xuanhuan's brow furrowed. There really is something strange about the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. This sort of thing that is neither human nor ghost actually exists. Qin Huan raised his eyebrows and said, "He's only one person, while we have over 1,000 experts. What is there to fear? Whoever is willing to take this monster's head first, I will give him a merit." Immediately, a warrior riding an azure mane horse, carrying a warhammer, stepped out from the ranks and said, "Your Highness, leave this thing that is neither human nor ghost to me, Wu Qingda. This general will be back soon." Wu Qingda's warhammer had 5 battle spirits circulating around it. As expected, there were many talents in the Lingnan region. This was actually an expert at the peak of the 3rd layer of the heavenly realm. He would probably be able to cultivate into the divine domain very soon. Die. Wu Qingda raised his warhammer high up and smashed it down, causing flames to erupt. This was an expert who cultivated the law of fire. The flames contained an intense power of the law, and the heat was scorching. However, something unexpected happened. The Death Knight actually raised an arm to block Wu Qingda's hammer. With a loud bang, his entire left arm was broken. At the same time, the sword in his hand shot out like lightning, directly piercing Wu Qingda's mouth, and the blade came out from the back of his head. God damn it! Qin Huan was dumbfounded. Wu Qingda sat on the warhorse and trembled under the reflection of his eyes. His opponent slowly pulled out his sword. Wu Qingda fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Moreover, the mysterious knight's arm was surrounded by green spirit force. The bent arm slowly straightened and healed itself. What kind of powerful healing ability was this? Not good. Yi Xuanhuan frowned and said, "Your Highness, look at the sword in his hand. It's the embryo of the heavenly book." What? Qin Huan was dumbfounded. That's right, on the blade of the mysterious knight's hand, golden divine characters slowly appeared. Moreover, it blossomed with a slightly dense indigo light. This embryo was actually a mid-rank heavenly book, and it was a mid-rank heavenly book of the law of life. So it was this heavenly book that provided the life energy of this corpse that had died a long time ago, allowing him to become a guardian of the heavenly tome forest. The legend is true, the legend is true. Yi Xuanhuan muttered. What legend? Qin Huan frowned. Yi Xuanhuan respectfully said, 10 years ago, This general traveled through the White Leaves Forest. I heard from a few hermits that in the depths of the White Leaves Forest, there were a few experts that had died a long time ago. They had at least the strength of the divine domain. And after their deaths, they were controlled by gods and became hunters that were neither human nor ghost. The people of the world called them hunting ghost generals. They were vicious creatures that no living beings dared to approach. It seems that the person in front of us is one of the hunting ghost generals. One of them? Qin Huan was stunned. You mean there's more than one of these monsters? I'm afraid so. Yi Xuanhuan's expression turned cold, and he said, Your Highness, send out the Iron Armor Army to charge. The hunting ghost generals are the same as humans. Once their strength is exhausted, they are no different from a cripple. Using the charge of the Iron Armor Army to consume a portion of the spiritual energy of the mid-rank heavenly book it carries, this subordinate will personally cut off its head. I ask for Your Highness' approval to send out the Iron Armor Army. Qin Huan was also somewhat confused. He nodded and said, As you wish, send out the Iron Armor Army. Yes. What do they want to do? Qin Yin crouched in the grass and asked in a low voice. Lin Muyu heard even more clearly and said, Send the cannon fodder cavalry to consume the spiritual energy of the hunting ghost general, and then kill it. Qin Yin frowned. Why doesn't Yi Xuanhuan personally go to battle? Don't tell me that the lives of those cavalrymen are not important? Lin Muyu could not help but laugh. In the eyes of the commander, the strength of every army and every soldier is like a chess piece on a chessboard. They are used to defend or to attack. As long as they play their role, it doesn't matter even if they die. I believe that Qin Huan and Yi Xuanhuan also think the same way. Qin Yin remained silent. Lin Muyu thought of another problem. Yi Xuanhuan was so unscrupulous. If she met such an opponent on the battlefield, it would be a little too terrifying. Although Long Qianlin was proficient in battle techniques, he was still a benevolent general after all. He would not be unscrupulous. However, if it was Yi Xuanhuan, it would be a different story. Lin Muyu would rather face Long Qianlin than a despicable person like Yi Xuanhuan. In the distance, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. Nearly 200 armored soldiers brandished their weapons and rushed towards the hunting ghost general. They quickly increased the speed of the war horses to the peak. Under the impact of the hundreds of kilograms of weight of man and horse, even the pressure of the Holy Realm could not withstand it. Roar! The hunting ghost general finally spoke. Although it was just a low roar like that of a wild beast, in the midst of the roar, the fiery red fighting energy around its body rose sharply. It was actually the king's fighting energy. Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. This is actually a master who has a Holy King realm expert. I'm really King Uzi. Qin Yin was dumbfounded. She could not help but squint her beautiful eyes at the man she loved. She could not understand what Lin Muyu said at all. Suddenly, she felt that there were too many things about him that she needed to understand. During the chaotic battle, the hunting ghost general's fiery red longsword danced through the air, shredding one armored cavalier after another. At the same time, its own body was also subjected to one attack after another. Light erupted from its suit of battle armor, and in the blink of an eye, its first suit of battle armor had been broken. Streaks of dark red blood flowed from its body. In just 3 short minutes, close to 30 armored cavaliers had been reduced to corpses, and the masterless war steeds were galloping wildly across the grassland. It's time. Yi Xuanhuan abruptly pulled out his sword before rushing toward the hunting ghost general in a wraith-like manner. The same king's fighting energy erupted from the blade of his sword. And before the hunting ghost general even had a chance to turn around, Yi Xuanhuan had already slashed his sword through the air. Crack! A head that had been dead for a long time flew into the air. The hunting ghost general's battle armor had been destroyed, and it had expended at least a third of its spiritual power before being slain by Yi Xuanhuan. Wah! The battle beast let loose a howl of anguish before falling to the ground along with its master. The flames in its eyes gradually extinguished, and it died just like that. Yi Xuanhuan walked forward with a cold look in his eyes before picking up the hunting ghost general's longsword. He exerted a bit of force, and his king's fighting energy surged into the blade of the sword. Immediately, a burst of indigo light surged forth. It was indeed a mid-grade heavenly tome, and the instantaneous influx of life force almost made Yi Xuanhuan's entire body feel so comfortable that he almost wanted to cry out. He returned to Qin Huan's side with the long sword in his hand, and said with a smile, "I wonder what kind of godly being wrote this mid-grade heavenly tome prototype." He slowly sheathed the long sword as he spoke, then fastened the scabbard onto the buckle of his military belt. Qin Huan furrowed his brows. It was clear that Yi Xuanhuan had no intention of handing over the mid-grade heavenly tome prototype. Instead, he had already decided to take it for himself. This made Qin Huan a little unhappy, but he couldn't say it out loud. After all, Yi Xuanhuan was the most powerful being in their group, and he was a powerful being on the same level as the Holy King. Whether or not they could obtain the divine tome prototype would depend on him. "Shall we continue?" Qin Huan asked in an indifferent manner. "Yes." Yi Xuanhuan cupped his hands and smiled. Qin Huan continued, "Commander Yi has served the country and killed this hunting ghost general. Once I return to Hundred Ridge City, I will definitely report this to Royal Father. This time, Commander Yi will definitely be promoted. Perhaps, if Royal Father is happy, he will confer the title of Commander Yi as one of the new 7 marshals of Iha country." Yi Xuanhuan's eyes lit up and he beamed with joy. "Many thanks for your support, Your Highness. This general swears loyalty and devotion to you." Good. Let's go." Yes. Not long after, Qin Huan led the troop of 1,000 people out of sight. Those soldiers who had died in battle were not even buried. They had been too impatient for success, and had gone to seize the treasures in the depths of the heavenly tome forest. Lin Muyu stood up and whistled to summon Takshu. She said, "Xiaoyin, let's take a detour through the forest on the right and advance at full speed. We have to reach the depths of the forest ahead of Qin Huan's group." Yes. Qinyin also mounted her horse, and the 2 war horses galloped away under the moonlight. After circling around a hill, the 2 of them took the southeast route and galloped across the plains under the moonlight. Fortunately, the depths of the forest were mostly fertile land. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for the war horses to pass through, and they would not have been able to reach Qin Huan's group. In the end, they had not gone too far when they suddenly saw the faint glow of fire in front of them. This glow was too familiar. It was another patrolling ghost general. "Let's go around." Qin Yin's eyes were filled with worry. She had seen the power of the patrolling ghost general, and was unwilling to provoke this trouble. However, Lin Muyu shook her head. "It's too late. The patrolling ghost general must have sensed our aura, and came over. Besides, I also want to meet this patrolling ghost general, and see just how powerful it is. It's 2 against 1, so we won't be at a disadvantage. Besides," Qin Yin giggled. "Besides, the patrolling ghost general has a mid-grade heavenly tome embryonic sword in his hands. Isn't that right? You must have taken a fancy to this." Lin Muyu smiled. "Xiaoyin, you're so smart. How can I lie to you in the future?" In the blink of an eye, a patrolling ghost general that looked almost exactly the same as before appeared in the fertile land. It opened its foul mouth at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin from afar and yelled. Chapter 524. No need to be courteous with him. Let's attack together. Lin Muyu said in a low voice. "I'll attract his attention and use the 7 luminaries' holy gourd to deplete his energy. Xiaoyin, you find a chance to kill him. This mid-tier heavenly book embryo sword is mine." As she spoke, Lin Muyu leaped off her horse and pulled out the stellar sword. The moment the substandard god artifact sword was unsheathed, the world seemed to turn dark. Dozens of golden god binding chains encircled the stellar sword, greatly increasing its destructive power. When her figure reached a certain height, she pounced down and executed the 5 mountains descend from the heavens with the might of Mt Tai. Roar! The ghost general seemed to be able to sense the power of the enemy in front of him. He roared and the king's battle flame danced wildly on the sword in his hand. He concentrated almost all his energy on the sword to block Lin Muyu's attack. Bang! After all, Lin Muyu had only used 70% of her strength. Her stellar sword was forcefully deflected as she retreated backwards. On the other hand, the patrolling ghost general borrowed the force of the beast's impact and charged forward instead. With a wave of his sword, he swept it horizontally towards the place where Lin Muyu had landed. Rays of sword light flashed as he slashed his sword 3 times in an instant. Such a powerful sword aura. Lin Muyu naturally knew how powerful the Holy King's realm was. This ghost general must have been an expert swordsman when he was alive. Buzz! Raising his left arm, the divine power of the 7 luminaries' holy gourd surged and quickly condensed into the image of the dragon blood battle shield. At the same time, the Star Lotus armor also appeared behind the dragon blood battle shield. Dang dang dang. Several golden rays burst out, illuminating the surrounding field. The ghost general roared. Seeing that it couldn't break through the opponent's defense, he immediately activated his King's Battle Flame and launched a series of attacks. In just 10 seconds, the hunting ghost general had slashed almost 50 times, and cracks had started to appear on the dragon blood battle shield. However, Lin Muyu could sense that the hunting ghost general's aura and strength had decreased by at least 30%, while she had only focused on defense. Her martial soul's strength and doqi had decreased by less than 5%. No matter how she looked at it, it was a huge win for her. Fuse! With a shout, the god-binding chains and the 7 luminaries' mysterious sword fused into a huge sword that circled around the star's sword. Lin Muyu spun on the spot and swung her sword, forcing the hunting ghost general to retreat. At this moment, Qin Yin's attack finally began. The heaven-suppressing sword, which was filled with Star's battle aura, carried the power of the 5th style of the Dragon Slayer skill, Horn Dragon Bind, and directly hit the hunting ghost general's back. Hong! With a clear dragon roar, a true dragon god binding shackles turned into a horned dragon that wrapped around the hunting ghost general. The dragon's tail pierced deep into the ground, imprisoning the hunting ghost general where he was. He struggled desperately, but he could not break free at all. All right. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh out loud. She raised her hand, and the gourd vine flew up, adding another layer of shackles to the hunting ghost general. Her right hand tossed away the stellar sword. Flames lingered around it, and the body of the sword began to spin rapidly. The dragon flame spiral break had already begun to accumulate power. Moreover, this spiral break contained the power of the 7 luminaries' immortal sword. Its destructive power was simply unimaginable. Roar! The hunting ghost general's last roar actually contained a little panic. With a pu sound, the stellar sword flew past and directly crushed his chest. Immediately, this Holy King realm powerhouse that was neither human nor ghost was immediately reincarnated. Lin Muyu grabbed the hunting ghost general's sword with unusual joy. A mysterious life force flowed into her body, and it seemed to have begun to quickly restore the battle aura and the power of the martial soul in her body. It was indeed a good treasure. After quickly sheathing the sword, Lin Muyu said happily, "All right, the mission is completed. Let's continue." Qin Yin smiled and asked, "Since you likes the Heavenly Book embryo so much, why don't we continue to look for it? There must be more hunting ghost generals around. Let's just take all the Heavenly Book embryos of the Law of Life." "Forget it." Lin Muyu looked at the remains of the hunting ghost general on the ground and said, "They're dead, but they can't rest in peace. Their souls can't reincarnate. It's already tragic enough. We've already committed a sin by killing one, so let's not commit too many sins. Let's go." Moonlight seeped through the forest. Scattered all around were all sorts of human books, spiritual books, and inscribed stone tablets. However, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin were no longer interested. The power of spiritual books was only so. Killing an armor demon would probably be somewhat strenuous. If they wanted to learn, it would be better to learn earthly books or heavenly books. At the very least, it was worth learning. The war horses galloped forward, and for the most part, it was impossible for them to sleep. After galloping for nearly 10 li towards the center of the Heavenly Book forest, the surrounding scenery changed slightly. The ground was filled with potholes, as if something had destroyed it. However, these potholes covered the entire forest, yet not a single stone tablet had been damaged. This could only mean one thing. Someone had intentionally or unintentionally destroyed the terrain of the forest, but had intentionally left those stone tablets undamaged. A little further ahead, there was a huge palm print on the ground. The palm print was nearly 10 meters long and had sunk nearly a meter into the ground. It was probably a palm that had fallen from the sky, and the strength of the palm was extremely astonishing. This, Qin blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "Such a powerful palm strength, can brother you do it?" Lin Muyu shook her head. He can't. My palm technique originated from Chu's fire palm, but I ask myself, I don't have this kind of palm strength. That's right. Qin sensed for a moment, but still seemed to be able to feel the faint ice energy around the palm print. She said, the one who used the palm is an ice law controller. Strong. Shockingly strong. Lin Muyu furrowed her brow. This place isn't too safe. Let's go quickly. Otherwise, if we run into them, we might be in danger. The two continued to urge their horses forward. In front of them was still a vast expanse of fertile land. At this time, the east was already beginning to brighten. It was almost dawn, and the last rays of moonlight fell upon the earth. In the distance, a stone tablet glowed with an enchanting luster. Qin saw it clearly and could not help but smile. Brother Yu, it's the earthly book. The earthly book. Haha, that's right. Lin Muyu was also overjoyed. She urged her horse to gallop over, and parted the dense foliage of the forest. She saw that the bright stone tablet was engraved with lines of divine characters, and there was a very conspicuous earth word at the bottom. Indeed, this was an earth tombstone tablet. Who wants to learn it? Lin Muyu asked. Qin said, You know a lot of words. You come after you learn it, teach Xiaoyin the other heavenly books. Oh okay, Lin Muyu secretly sighed. When she first learned the Oracle Bone script, it was to make it easier for her to pick up girls. Now, she did not forget her original intention. She could actually use the Oracle Bone script to pick up the supreme ruler of this realm, the human empress. There were beauties in the books, and the ancients did not lie. This was a wind elemental book. When Lin Muyu was engrossed in reading it, her spiritual sense instantly flew out of her high and into the stone tablet. It was as if she had become one with the heavenly book. Her spiritual sense was placed in a field of raging wind. Sharp gusts of wind raged past, shattering the giant rocks on the high mountains. The wind swept across the earth, bringing with it a destructive divine power. It was a storm. The edge of the heavens nurtured a bone-chilling wind. The sleeping anger was awakened by the common people. The wind was raging, and the earth was wailing. All living things lost their way forward. False lies blinded all conscience between heaven and earth. The god of storm had awakened from his slumber. With boundless anger, he tore everything apart. Death Storm. When Lin Muyu had completely mastered the heavenly book of storm, the stone tablet collapsed with a crash. Divine power instantly rushed into Lin Muyu's brain. In an instant, her high fell into a state of chaos. Lin Muyu had to concentrate to accept the heavenly book of storm into her high and make it a part of her mind. He staggered and was caught by Qin. He only felt that his mind was filled with storms and destruction. The power of the Earth Book was so strong that he felt like he was about to lose control. Are you okay, big brother Yu? Qin asked worriedly. I'm fine. Lin Muyu shook his head. The spirit pulse technique suppressed his spiritual sense, so that nothing would go wrong. At this time he was a little sad. Sad that the power of the Earth Book was so strong. Perhaps with Qin's ability, she could only learn the Earth Book. The heavenly book was not something that she could control with the strength of her soul. Now can you write this Earth Book? Qin asked. I should be able to. Lin Muyu thought for a moment. If I write 10 Death Storm Earth books, I should be able to succeed at least one. Qin smiled. The chances of success aren't very high. Of course, otherwise the Earth Book would be worthless. Lin Muyu looked into the distance. He couldn't see the second Earth Book stone tablet, so he said, Let's go, Xiaoyin. We'll keep looking. If we find the second stone tablet, I'll let you comprehend it. Okay. The sun slowly rose. Under the morning light, the figures of a man and a woman were reflected on the grass. When Qin was concentrating on looking for stone tablets in the surroundings, she suddenly heard a pa-pa-pa sound coming from the grass not far away. It sounded like an electric current. She immediately raised her palm and let out a soft shout. Starlight flew out and separated the grass leaves. Suddenly, rays of purple light split open a black hole. Heavens, what is that? Qin was shocked. Lin Muyu felt a chill in her heart. She shouted, "Careful, Luolan is coming." What? A figure flashed through the spatial crack. Luolan's figure was frighteningly fast. With a whoosh, she was already in the air. She opened her palm and divine power surrounded it. She smiled. This noble one thought that coming to the heavenly tome forest would only bring a few heavenly tomes and divine tomes to strengthen the 7 world palaces. I didn't think that there would be an unexpected harvest. Qinjin's daughter, you've been a monarch for long enough. Die. Under the control of a god realm expert's domain, Qin was almost unable to move. She looked helplessly at Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu felt like her heart was about to shatter. With a loud roar, she activated the prelude of the 7 glorious stars transformation without holding back. She broke through Luolan's godly state domain in one fell swoop, dashed past Qin, and rolled off the back of the warhorse. Bang! With a fierce palm strike, Qin Yin's horse was instantly turned into a pile of dust. Lin Muyu stood up and charged at Luolan. There was no way she could escape. Her twin martial souls fused together, and the 7 luminaries' celestial sword appeared around her. She clasped her palms together and unleashed the full power of the 7 luminaries' stars transformation. Chapter 525. Bright stars mixed with the whistling sound of the king's battle flame rushed towards Luolan in the sky. Even Luolan did not dare to underestimate this attack. He opened his palms and divine power surged. Balls of flames whistled out and condensed into the shape of a fire umbrella. With a sinister smile on his face, he said, "With your advancement, you will definitely step into the godly state in less than 10 years. How can I allow you to live in this world?" Boom, boom, boom. The 7 glorious stars transformation kept splashing on the fire umbrella. Flames and starlight soared into the sky. Heaven and earth shook, and the sun and moon lost their light. Shock waves swept out in all directions, uprooting the grass and trees on the ground. Under the destructive force, even the stone tablets of the heavenly book in the distance could not escape, and were all shattered into pieces. After this attack, Luolan's aura weakened a little. At this moment, a person had already separated the flames. A dazzling star soared with the power of the 7 glorious, celestial sword martial souls slashed down from the sky. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Luolan raised his head and his face was filled with anger, courting death. Turning his palm into a claw, Luolan's 5 fingers grabbed the star's sword like an iron claw. With a dang sound, he grabbed the sword's body. However, a ray of light directly leaked out from the sword's body and attacked Luolan's body. It was the light-splitting slash. Under the attack of the pure energy body, Luolan's body trembled. The faint godly state aura on the surface of his body slowly dissipated. However, his fingers grabbed the sword's blade even tighter. His eyes were filled with anger as he said, "This star's sword is a treasure that I gave to the god of the heavenly realm. How did it appear in the hands of a little bastard like you? Give it to me." Luolan forcefully grabbed the sword, and a strong force forced Lin Muyu to let go. Swoosh. The sword hilt left his hand, but it was accompanied by thick flames. Lin Muyu's handsome face was almost distorted. He raised his iron fist and endured the strong backlash of the 7 glorious stars transformation. He heavily attacked Luolan's abdomen with the 6 glorious heavenly tribulation. Luolan's eyes were cold. He lightly lifted his left leg and kicked at Lin Muyu's fist with divine power. Bang! An explosion of energy reverberated through the air, and the 6 luminaries' heavenly tribulation was scattered just like that. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu's right hand was shaken to the point where it went numb. After all, there was a great disparity in strength. How could a Holy King-level elite fight against a God Realm elite head-on? But at this moment, Lin Muyu suddenly withdrew her right palm. The flames were dense, and the star's sword in Luolan's hand spun rapidly. Crack! Luolan was actually unable to hold onto the stellar sword. Under Lin Muyu's control, the stellar sword spun in the air. Lin Muyu then turned around and sent a dragon flame spiral at Luolan's head. Insignificant skill. Luolan laughed heartily. She opened her mouth and blew out a gust of air. With a hua sound, it turned into a piercingly cold storm and directly blew the stellar sword away. At the same time, she turned around and punched Lin Muyu with her left fist. Luolan's speed was too fast. Lin Muyu was caught off guard and could only summon the dragon blood shield on her right arm to block it. Bang! Her entire right arm felt like it was about to shatter. There was a sweet taste in her throat, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Lin Muyu directly fell from her mouth. At the same time, Qin Yin's figure appeared behind Luolan, and the heaven-suppressing sword stabbed straight at the back of Luolan's head like lightning. Clang! Sparks flew, and in the midst of the sound of metal colliding, Luolan's body trembled. The god state Gang Qi at the back of her head was slightly pierced by the heaven-suppressing sword. The tip of the sword even pierced the surface of her skin, and it was already bleeding. Just as Luolan angrily tried to turn around, Qin Yin's beautiful face was covered with frost. Her left hand lightly opened, and the god-binding chains shone brightly. She heavily slapped the hilt of the sword. Bang! The golden dragon flame of the fourth heaven of Zhanlong was sent out by her palm. With the heaven-suppressing sword as a medium, the flames exploded and instantly swallowed Luolan's body. At this time, Lin Muyu fell heavily to the ground. Looking at the soaring flames in the sky, she murmured, "Xiao Yin." Although the golden dragon flame attack seemed to have succeeded, Luolan's aura did not weaken by much. Within the flames, a huge flaming palm slapped out, straight for Qin Yin's chest. Boom! In an instant, the sacred dragon shield shattered, and the three protective god-binding chains also shattered. The difference in cultivation between Qin Yin and Luolan was too great. Under the power of Luolan's palm, her delicate body fell like a kite with its string cut. Blood sprayed through the air. She was already seriously injured. "Qin Yin, you must not die." As if possessed, Lin Muyu gathered all her remaining strength and rushed over. Her falling star steps flashed, and she hugged Qin Yin in the air. Both of them tumbled to the ground. Behind them, Luolan's voice sounded like a demon from hell. "That's fine. Since the two of you died together, then let Qin Jin's daughter and adopted son go to hell together." The sky was filled with flames. Luolan's palms held a flaming mountain range in the shape of an impact. Her eyes were filled with arrogance and laughter. She suddenly waved her arms, and the destructive impact instantly fell from the sky, covering an area of nearly 100 meters. With Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's current state, there was no way they could escape in such a short time. However, at this time, a jade pendant appeared in Lin Muyu's hand. The golden characters on the jade pendant shot into the sky, glowing with a rich green light. In an instant, it activated the power of heaven and earth. It was a supreme-grade spiritual tool embryo of the law of space. Wang. In half a second, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin in her arms disappeared. All that was left on the ground was the swirling battle aura. In that split second, Luolan's fierce attack had also landed. Pung! The ground shook violently, and a patch of green grass turned into a basin. Flames shot into the sky. Luolan's attack seemed to have created a purgatory on the ground. It was extremely terrifying. Sensing that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin's auras had not disappeared, Luolan suddenly turned around and saw that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had appeared in the forest 200 meters behind him. A supreme-grade spiritual tool embryo of the law of space could only teleport them so far in an instant. If it was a heavenly book or a divine book, it might be able to teleport them thousands of miles away. What a cunning person! Luolan had an absolute advantage in terms of power, but he could not kill Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. He suddenly became a little angry and flew into the air with his palm full of divine power. He was determined to kill them with his next attack. After using the shattering void shuttle once, Luolan had to rest for a while before he could use it again. Therefore, he could only fly over and look for an opportunity to kill Lin Muyu and Qin Yin again. However, when Luolan arrived above the two of them, Lin Muyu had already regained some of his stamina. He activated his remaining power, and a mystical golden true qi circled around his arms. It was none other than the Fushi celestial power in his mortal body. Furthermore, it was a very pure strand of the Fushi celestial power. Even Luolan's celestial power was nowhere near as pure as the Fushi celestial power. Do you want to fight again? Luolan squinted his eyes with a faint smile on his face. Although the divine power in Lin Muyu's arms was very pure, its strength was far inferior to his. Perhaps he only needed one blow to see the gap between them. How could Lin Muyu not know the gap between them? However, he had no choice but to fight with all his might. Otherwise, he and Qin Yin would die here. The golden battle energy on his arms kept circling. Lin Muyu's handsome face was full of resentment as he said, Luolan, you bastard! You killed Grandpa Lei Hong. Today we will settle the old and new accounts together. Bastard! Luolan was furious. He raised his arms and divine power enshrouded him. In Iha country, no one dared to scold him, Venerable Luolan, as a dog. Now that he was scolded by Lin Muyu, he naturally felt very unhappy. Pa! Lin Muyu leaped up into the air. She had already accumulated all of her strength. The Fushi celestial energy and the power of the Star Chun art surged in her arms, and she was like an arrow that shot into the sky. She raised her arms up high, and in an instant, the celestial energy in her arms cooled down and turned into the ice spirit star energy. She slammed right into Luolan's fiery golden palm. Puff! There was a muffled sound, but it was not the expected explosion. On the ground, Qin Yin's eyes widened as her body trembled. She was worried about Lin Muyu, but there was nothing she could do. In front of an ultimate god like Luolan, what could she do as a heavenly venerable? She was full of unwillingness, but she could only silently pray to God to protect Lin Muyu. Hiss hiss, streams of icy qi rose into the air, and Lin Muyu turned into an ice arrow that brushed past Luolan's shoulder. In the next moment, she started to fall to the ground. Wah! She spat out a mouthful of blood, and the clothes on her chest and shoulders were torn apart. Her body was covered in wounds, and it looked extremely terrifying. If it was a normal person, they would have been torn to pieces by Luolan's attack. In the air, Luolan's body stood still in the wind. A few seconds later, frost climbed up his beard, and then more and more. In the blink of an eye, Luolan's body was covered in frost and turned into a block of ice. The only difference between Luolan's body and the people who died under the jade snow ice before was that Luolan's body did not explode. Instead, wisps of golden divine power appeared in his meridians, slowly dispersing the power of ice. Lin Muyu fell heavily to the ground, but she struggled to raise her head and said, Xiao Yin, kill him. Qin Yin held the heaven-subduing sword without saying a word. Her snow-white long legs slightly lowered, and rays of starlight enshrouded her surroundings. After accumulating some power, she leaped up and slashed at Luolan, who was in the air like a crescent moon. However, the moment the blade approached Luolan's body, there was a sudden pop sound. The sword light was rebounded as if some kind of restriction was protecting Luolan. Qin Yin was rebounded by the divine power, and flew away with a whimper. Her injuries worsened. Lin Muyu looked at her dispiritedly and gritted her teeth. Her palm flashed across her Qianquan pouch, and took out a dazzling battle axe. With a light flip of her wrist, heaven and earth energy was activated. Earth Law Lower Grade Earth Book Rock. Boom boom boom. On the ground, a series of rocks shot up into the sky. The power of the Earth Book was actually so shocking. With a bang, a sharp rock all landed heavily on Luolan's lower body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Even though he was a God State expert, after enduring so many attacks from Lin Muyu and Qin Yin, Luolan seemed to be at his limit. Chapter 526. Rustle, rustle. Ice shards continued to fall. Luolan's old face, which was almost distorted, was filled with anger and humiliation. His palms trembled slightly, and rays of golden divine power quickly revolved around him. He looked down at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Ai, Lin Muyu helplessly sighed. He no longer had any strength left in his body. Not far away, Qin Yin was lying under a maple tree. She didn't say a single word, and seemed to have fainted from her injuries. Xiao Yin. Lin Muyu leaned on his long sword as he slowly stood up, and limped towards Qin Yin. His vision was a little blurry, and he almost couldn't see Qin Yin's figure clearly. Luolan looked at him in the air, and actually felt a trace of pity in his heart. Lin Muyu, you were originally a peerless talent, but why did you have to be my enemy? I'll give you a chance now. As long as you leave the empire and join the 7 world palaces, this sovereign will accept you as my disciple. How about it? Lin Muyu raised his head and looked at him. He couldn't help but find it funny and burst out laughing, causing his wounds to ache. Luolan, you're just a despicable person without any martial virtue. You've been cultivating for thousands of years, but you still haven't made any progress. You think you're worthy to be my master? Put away your hypocritical mask. I feel disgusted just looking at you. The golden light in Luolan's palm became even more intense. His voice also turned cold. Since you want to die, I'll give you a complete corpse on account of your talent. Buzz. Luolan raised his palm, and a golden light soared into the sky. This attack was definitely going to take Lin Muyu's life. Lin Muyu walked towards Qinyin step by step, completely ignoring her. Looking at Qinyin's beautiful face lying under the tree, he actually felt a trace of warmth in his heart. It seemed like it was worth it to be able to see her one more time before he died. Luolan didn't understand love, and naturally wouldn't have tender feelings for the fairer sex. His powerful palm was about to descend from the sky. Stop. Just as the palm was about to land, a dignified voice suddenly sounded from the distance. A figure flashed through the bushes like a bolt of lightning, shooting out from the depths of the forest. Before Luolan could even see the person's face clearly, he had already struck out with his palm. The power of the divine heaven realm quickly swept through the surroundings, and his 5 fingers were filled with icy qi as he struck out towards Luolan. Who are you? Luolan didn't have time to say anything. She could only send the palm that she had originally intended for Lin Muyu to the middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and big eyes. When the 2 palms of fire and ice collided, a gust of wind suddenly swept through the surroundings, blowing Lin Muyu to the ground beside Qinyin. She almost couldn't open her eyes. Bang! With a sudden burst of energy, the middle-aged cultivator's palm surged with boundless ice attribute profound energy, and actually forced Luolan to fly back several steps before stopping. Blood had already flowed from the corner of her mouth, and her injuries had also worsened. Who exactly are you? Luolan quickly recovered the energy in her body, and her gaze fell on the person who had just arrived. The middle-aged man had a dignified appearance as he calmly smiled and said, Ice Palm Wutong. I have guarded this White Leaves forest for nearly 10,000 years. Why, since you've already stepped into the divine realm, why don't you ascend, and instead act like a tyrant in the mortal realm? Ice Palm Wutong? Luolan coldly said. And who is Ice Palm Wutong? Wutong's face was filled with pride. He crossed his arms and laughed loudly. Before God Emperor Fuxi ascended, he ordered us to guard the forest of heavenly tome monoliths in the White Leaves forest. Anyone who doesn't have a fortuitous encounter that intrudes is to be killed without question. Old brat, hurry up and get out of the White Leaves forest. Even if I don't kill you, someone will naturally kill you. Immediately, scram. He pointed outside the forest and growled. I'll count to 3. If you don't scram, the only thing left for you is death. Luolan had never been threatened like this before. Her face instantly turned ashen, but there was nothing she could do. The person in front of her had a deep understanding of the laws of ice, and his ice palm was incomparably powerful. Just now, when she had exchanged a palm strike, her arms were still numb and cold. She probably didn't even have the strength to resist a second palm strike. If this Wutong really wanted to kill her, she would probably be killed as well. Swish swish, streams of ice energy began to encircle Wutong's palm. He was already determined to kill. Luolan's expression turned cold, and the divine power in her body seemed to slowly respond. The time limit for Void Tread was up. With a crash, a spatial crack appeared behind Luolan. He floated in, and looked at Lin Muyu from afar. He sneered, Lin Muyu Qinyin, we will meet again. Your lives are mine, Luolan. Remember this. Swish. Luolan's figure disappeared along with the spatial crack. Wutong turned around and walked towards Lin Muyu. At this moment, Qinyin had already awoken. Her beautiful eyes looked at Wutong, and she asked, Was it this uncle who saved us? Lin Muyu nodded. Yes. Wu Tong did not buy it. He pointed outside the forest of heavenly tome monoliths and said, all of you leave as well. If you don't leave in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, I will turn you into ice fragments with a single palm strike. Don't doubt my words. My nickname of grim-faced, Wu Tong, is not just for show. Lin Muyu fell to the ground, and then sat cross-legged there. She said, we're already so heavily injured that we don't have the strength to walk. If you want to kill us, then do it. It's just that I didn't think that the people God Emperor Fuxi left to guard the heavenly tome monolith forest would be so indiscriminate. Wu Tong's sword-like eyebrows rose. What do you mean indiscriminate? This Supreme One is only responsible for guarding the heavenly tome monolith forest. I don't care about anything else. I don't care who you are. In any case, leave immediately. He looked at Lin Muyu and Qin Yin, who was still lying on the ground. Suddenly he creased his brow and said, forget it. I'll give you 2 hours to heal your wounds. Once you've recovered some strength, you can leave. Lin Muyu nodded and took out a bottle of healing medicine from her cosmos sack. She gave a bottle to Qin Yin, and then sprinkled some medicine on her wounds. Afterwards, she took out a new set of hunter's clothes and put them on. She sat cross-legged on the ground, and then brought her palms together to heal her wounds. Fuxi's divine energy flowed through her meridians like a spring breeze, unclogging the blockages. Streams of faint golden light flowed around her body, creating a marvelous sight. Wu Tong crossed his arms and looked at Lin Muyu from a distance. When he saw the Fuxi's divine energy flowing through Lin Muyu's body, he could not help but be slightly startled. His brow creased, but he did not say anything. Several minutes later, there was suddenly a sharp whistle from the forest. An old man dressed in an azure robe appeared in the forest. He wore a golden badge on his chest. He was a member of the 7 world palaces, and had the cultivation of a holy venerable. Unsurprisingly, he was Luo Lan's disciple. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin. He quickly recognized them, and when he saw that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin were heavily injured and had already lost the ability to fight, he rushed over with a loud laugh. Laws of wind danced wildly in his palm as he laughed loudly. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, but by chance you find it by chance. I, Duan Mufang, am going to make a great contribution to the 7 world palaces today. However, before he could completely unleash his palm force, Ice Palm Wu Tong suddenly rushed forward. He suddenly stomped on the ground and looked at his opponent in the air. Icy chi surged in his palm as he roared angrily. You dare to kill someone in my territory? Duan Mufang abruptly raised his head, and his face instantly paled. He had been careless and had not sensed that there was a saintly heaven realm expert beside him. Wu Tong's palm force descended from the sky, as if a glacier had descended. How could Duan Mufang block it? His 2 palms instantly shattered into a pile of ice, and his body was unable to move. He was directly smashed into pieces by Wu Tong's palm. At the same time, with a bang, a massive palm of ice landed on the ground. It was exactly the same as the one that Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had seen before, presumably Wu Tong's handiwork. This ancient expert that guarded the heavenly tome monolith forest was actually so terrifying. After cultivating for over 10,000 years, even if he had not broken into the divine realm, his strength was probably no less than the exalted god Luo Lan's. Clap clap. After landing, Wu Tong looked at Duan Mufang's dismembered corpse and lightly clapped his hands. In the territory of Ice Palm Wu Tong, only I can casually kill someone. Humph. As Lin Muyu healed her wounds, she narrowed her eyes as she watched the battle unfold. Her heart was in turmoil. What a fine Ice Palm Wu Tong. His strength and character were both rather solid. It seemed that he would not die at Luo Lan's hands in this heavenly tome monolith forest. As he continued to heal his wounds, Fuxi's divine power was an innate healing divine power. He quickly healed his injured body. To the side, Qin Yin also sat cross-legged, the god-binding chains transforming into the image of a golden divine dragon that circled around her graceful figure. With the bloodline of the true dragon, the speed at which she healed her wounds was not much slower than Lin Muyu's. Not long after, when Lin Muyu's wounds had mostly healed, a clear and bright laughter suddenly came from the forest. Suddenly, a hearty laughter came from above the forest. Wu Tong, you weakling, why haven't you come out yet? Your grandpa Zhengjian is here. Zhengjian? Wu Tong's body trembled, his straight eyebrows knitting together. That ugly freak actually came at a time like this. Bastard, he's simply a bastard. This old man's wishful thinking is going to come to nothing. Whoosh. On the branches of the forest, a middle-aged man dressed in fiery red soft armor suddenly landed on the ground. His body was surrounded by the domain of the divine heaven realm. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he said with a smile, "Just now, this old man sensed energy ripples in this area, and even gods appeared. I was worried that if you were killed and had your head cut off, you would lose face for the God Emperor, so I came to see if you were dead or not." Wu Tong immediately patted his chest and said, "Your grandpa's palm energy is vigorous, so how could I have been killed? But you, on the other hand, are you running to my place to escape? Ha ha ha, these past few days have not been peaceful. Quite a few experts have entered the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. I'm afraid that your territory will soon be lost." T. Zhang Jian's temperament was clearly a little more explosive. He said, "This old man was just fretting about not having a place to use my fire fist. The more those people come, the better." As he spoke, Zhang Jian finally saw Lin Muyu and Qin Yin behind Wu Tong. When he saw the golden Fuxi divine power flowing on the surface of Lin Muyu's body, he could not help but tremble. He said, Who are they?" "Fated people, my guests," Wu Tong indifferently said. T. Zhang Jian quickly walked forward, arriving in front of Lin Muyu. He raised his hand and pressed it on Lin Muyu's shoulder. Immediately, a vigorous flame energy surged into his body. "You don't be impudent," Wu Tong growled. Zhang Jian did not care. Only when his power was being resisted by the Fuxi divine power in Lin Muyu's body did he suddenly open his eyes and retreat several steps. He knelt on one knee before Lin Muyu, cupped his fists and said, "Fire Fist Zheng Jian pays his respects to the successor of Fuxi." Chapter 527. Fuxi's successor? Lin Muyu's eyes widened. Why do you call me Fuxi's successor?" Zhang Jian raised his head and smiled. "Because your body contains a strand of God Emperor Fuxi's divine power before his ascension. This feeling is far too familiar, so you are the successor that God Emperor Fuxi left in the mortal realm. Subordinate Zheng Jian pays his respects to Lord Successor. If you have any requests, Zheng Jian will definitely help you." As he spoke, Zheng Jian glared at Wu Tong and said, "Old brat, aren't you coming to pay your respects? Have you already forgotten the teachings that God Emperor Fuxi instilled in us before his ascension?" Wu Tong could only kneel on one knee and say, "Subordinate Ice Palm Wu Tong pays his respects to Fuxi's successor." Lin Muyu suddenly felt as if she had profited from a disaster. Fuxi's heavenly tome was truly a precious treasure. It had actually allowed her to become Fuxi's successor in this unfamiliar place. She felt as if she had grasped onto a life-saving straw. "You are all people that Fuxi left behind before his ascension?" Lin Muyu asked. "Yes," Zheng Jian said. "Before the God Emperor ascended, he left behind the four absolutes of White Leaf, to guard the heavenly tome forest of monoliths, to prevent the divine characters within the forest from being stolen by vile people with evil intentions." "Four absolutes of White Leaf?" "Yes, the four absolutes are spiritual scholar Su Hao, Fire Fist Zheng Jian, Ice Palm Wu Tong, and the Demon King that entered a berserk state over 3,000 years ago and was sealed by spiritual scholar." Demon King. Lin Muyu was somewhat dumbfounded. That was definitely something incredible. "You can all get up first. There's no need to kneel while talking." "Many thanks, successor." Ice Palm Wu Tong stood up and respectfully said, "Not long ago, the seal of the Heavenly Imperial Gate was opened. I presume it was the successor's doing. If not for that, the power of heaven and earth would not have returned to the shattered cauldron realm." "Heavenly Imperial Gate?" Lin Muyu was confused. Wu Tong said, "Yes, the seal of the Heavenly Imperial Gate is completely tied to a divine book. This book is called Fuxi's Heavenly Tome. As long as the Fated One opens the Fuxi's Heavenly Tome, the Heavenly Imperial Gate will be reopened." So that's how it is. In that case, I was indeed the one who broke the seal. Successor, who is this lady? Zhang Jian's gaze fell on Qin Yin. The more he looked at her, the more beautiful she became. She was as beautiful as a fairy who had descended from heaven. She is. Lin Muyu thought about it and said with a smile, she is my younger sister, Qin Yin. Qin Yin smiled. Hello both of you. Wu Tong and Zheng Jian immediately became excited. Hello, miss. Zheng Jian did not know that many things had happened in the mortal realm, so he did not know who Qin Yin was. He only nodded and said, this time, successor has come to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, most likely to search for the mysteries of the Heavenly Tome? Yes, tell me about the secrets of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Lin Muyu straightened her body and said with a smile. Zheng Jian cupped his fists and said, before the Fuxi Celestial Emperor ascended, he left behind the 4 grates of white leaves to guard the steel forest. Now we've driven away a lot of giant vipers, fire monkeys, behemoths, and other spirit beasts to set up obstacles on the periphery of the steel forest. Then, in the steel forest region, a depth of 3,000 meters will be guarded by the hunting ghost generals commanded by the spirit scholar. This region is filled with inscriptions of the spirit tome. Wu Tong and I will guard the area within 8,000 meters. This area is filled with inscriptions of the earth tome. Another 15,000 meters will be the area guarded by the spirit scholar, Su Hao. He has been studying the heavenly tome of the law of life, commanding a group of hunting ghost generals that are neither human nor ghost. Their strength is unknown. There are some inscriptions of the heavenly tome buried in this area. Further in is the place where the Beeman King is sealed. The Beeman King has forgotten the teachings of the Celestial Emperor and has entered a berserk state. Lin Muyu asked, can I learn these stone tablets? Zheng Jian smiled. Before the God Emperor ascended, he left behind these stone tablets precisely so that the heavenly tomes would not be completely lost. As Fuxi's successor, these stone tablets were originally left behind for you. So that's how it is. Wu Tong said, successor, that God realm expert who wanted to kill you just now, what's going on? He's called Luolan. He's the backer of the Iha kingdom, and also my mortal enemy. I once died at his hands. Lin Muyu's eyes were suffused with faint hatred. Wu Tong took a deep breath and said, truly a pity. If I had known earlier, this subordinate would definitely have taken his dog head for master. Luolan is not that easy to deal with. Lin Muyu shook her head. He can shatter space and come and go as he pleases. Killing him is not easy, but the two of you must be extremely careful. This time, many people have come to the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. This place is practically completely exposed. If you don't mind, come with me. We, Zheng Jian and Wu Tong both revealed a troubled expression. Lin Muyu actually wanted to bring these 2 divine heaven realm experts back to the Empire to serve, but she did not think that they would faintly refuse. As a result, she said, after today, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest will be exposed to all the cultivators of the world. There will be an endless stream of people who will come to cause trouble. If the 2 of you stay here, sooner or later, you will bring about a fatal disaster. Why don't you come with me? A hint of excitement appeared in Zheng Jian's eyes. He cupped his hands and said, successor, Zheng Jian also wants to go with master to see the outside world of the continent, but we definitely cannot leave the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, or else we will vanish into thin air. Why? Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Wu Tong pointed at the ground, his eyes flashing with difficulty. Because there's a restriction placed underground. Before God Emperor Fuxi ascended, he left behind a restriction. Only in this area can we, the 4 absolutes of White Leaf, maintain our youth. Otherwise, with our trifling divine heaven realm cultivations, it's simply impossible for us to survive for 10,000 years. So, as long as we leave the area we guard, we will step out of the protection of the time restriction and instantly vanish into thin air, turning into a pile of bones. We actually should have died long ago. Lin Muyu was stunned. She clenched her fists and muttered, how can I save you? How can I remove this restriction, or continue to maintain it? Wu Tong smiled and said rather emotionally, successor's concern. Zheng Jian and I both understand, but successor need not worry. Zheng Jian and I, one ice and one fire, have traversed this forest for over 10,000 years. What kind of opponent have we not seen? Even if we die, we will still guard the monolith left behind by the God Emperor. If successor needs Zheng Jian and I to leave this place, we will naturally open our hearts and do our utmost to cultivate. Once we break through into the divine realm, we will be able to condense godhood and obtain eternal life. Naturally, we will be able to leave this place. This is also fine. Lin Muyu nodded. Then I will wait for you to step into the divine realm, and come find me in the northern ridge. Yes. The two of them cupped their fists together, their attitudes extremely respectful. It was as if they had already faintly taken Lin Muyu, the successor of Fuxi, as their new master. Not long after, Lin Muyu finished healing. It was time to replenish her strength. Therefore, she and Qinyin gathered dry firewood and started a fire to roast the meat. When the pieces of swan and eye meat emitted a fragrance, Wu Tong and Zheng Jian, the two peerless experts, sat at the side and kept swallowing their saliva. They didn't know how long it had been since they had tasted good food. The meat was golden yellow. Lin Muyu sprinkled cumin, vegetable leaves, and other condiments on it. The golden grease slowly flowed down the texture of the meat. It was extremely tempting. Gulp. Wu Tong swallowed his saliva and said, "Successor, what meat is this?" Swan and eye. What? Could it be the meat of the ferocious beast Swan and eye? Yes. Lin Muyu said, "When we were training in the North Ridge, we were lucky enough to kill a swan and eye. We didn't waste it and cut off a lot of its meat. In a bit, you and Zheng Jian should have a taste. The swan knees meat contains abundant spiritual energy. Perhaps it can help the two of you break through into the deity realm a little earlier. However, the side effects are also rather strong. It has a dry and hot nature, so normal people simply can't endure it." Wu Tong smiled. "Successor, be at ease. This subordinate has cultivated the laws of ice for 10,000 years. No heat can invade my body. Then that's good." Lin Muyu nodded. Not long after, she cut up the meat and shared it. Qinyin snuggled up to her side. The two of them were currently recovering from their injuries. Eating the rich spiritual energy of the swan knees meat could speed up their recovery. As for Wu Tong and Zheng Jian, they didn't know when they had last eaten such delicacies. The two of them wolfed down the food like hungry ghosts that had been starving for tens of thousands of years. After eating, Wu Tong wiped his oily mouth and said, "Delicious. I really didn't think that there would be such delicious delicacies in this world." Lin Muyu glanced at him and asked, "Wu Tong, what did the two of you eat in the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest before?" Wu Tong was somewhat silent, then said, "There were behemoths roaming around the vicinity of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, so normal prey simply didn't dare to enter. It was rare for us to be able to shoot down a few geese, swans, and other birds from the sky to satisfy our hunger. Normally, we wouldn't have such an opportunity, so we could only eat a few things that crawled on the ground, such as poisonous snakes and frogs. At the worst, we could only dig up underground rats and earthworms and roast them to eat." Lin Muyu couldn't help but dejectedly say, "The two of you have suffered." "It's fine." Wu Tong felt a tinge of bitterness in his heart. "The three of us were entrusted by God Emperor Fuxi, so no matter how much hardship we suffered, we still had to eat. Many thanks to Successor for your concern, and many thanks to Successor for this delicious meal." Lin Muyu asked, "Was it delicious?" Zheng Jian and Wu Tong simultaneously nodded. "Delicious. That's good." Lin Muyu faintly smiled. "Me and Xiaoyin still have quite a bit of swan and eye meat in our spatial bags. Once we leave the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, we'll leave some for you. Many thanks to Successor." The two simultaneously knelt down, their faces full of gratitude. Lin Muyu took the water pouch from Qinyin's hands and drank a mouthful, then asked, "On our way here, we saw quite a few potholes on the road. It should have been the work of the two of you, right? Just what happened?" Wu Tong couldn't help but feel somewhat embarrassed. 10,000 years is truly too dry and boring, so this subordinate and Zheng Jian would arrange a duel once a month. Unfortunately, in these 10,000 years, a victor has never been decided. Zheng Jian also respectfully said, I hope that successor does not blame the two of us. These 10,000 years are truly too long. I can understand this feeling, so I naturally won't blame the two of you. Lin Muyu stood up and said, It's fine. Since the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest has reappeared, your mission is almost complete. I will do my best to take away all the Heavenly Tomes and Divine Tomes, and leave the rest for the people of the world. You two should quickly cultivate and break through. Once you've broken through, come find me in the Empire. I will give you an important task. Yes, successor. Just then, the sound of horse hooves could be heard in the distance, as well as a human voice. Your Highness, there's a stone monolith with divine characters. It's the earthly tome. Heavens, it's the earthly tome. Good, immediately surround it and make a complete copy of it for me. Then smash it. Yes. Wu Tong couldn't help but crease his brow. Who is it that wants to smash the monolith? Zheng Jian clenched his fist, the light of fire lingering around him. Humph, if you want to smash the monolith, you'll have to ask my fist first. It's Qin Huan and the others. Lin Muyu faintly smiled. Fire Fist and Ice Palm, it's time for you to carry out your mission. Go. Yes, successor. This subordinate will be back soon. Chapter 528. At dusk, dew fell upon the White Leaves Forest, soaking the grass and trees. A thin mist rose from the forest, like a white skirt. Rustle. Qin Huan gripped his long sword and urged his horse forward. He dismounted, and two soldiers from the Iha kingdom waved their swords to cut down the thistles and shrubs, revealing a stone stele hidden under the shrubs. It was the Earth Tome stele inscription on the Law of Fire. It's real. Qin Huan was extremely excited. He knelt on one knee in front of the stele, and gently wiped the dust off it with his palm. It's the Earth Tome. Someone, wipe the surface of the stele clean, splash ink, and prepare to make a rubbing. Their method of making a rubbing was very simple. They would splash ink on the surface of the stele, and then cover it with a white cloth. Naturally, they would be able to copy all the inscriptions on the white cloth. Several Iha Kingdom soldiers walked forward and quickly wiped the stele clean. They then took out some ink and slowly poured it on the surface of the stele. Half a minute later, two soldiers unfurled a white cloth and covered the stele. Qin Huan personally used his palm to caress the surface of the white cloth. Very quickly, ink seeped out, and the inscriptions began to appear on the white cloth. Whoosh! The white cloth was placed on the grass, waiting for the ink to dry. It's done. Qin Huan lowered his head to look at the stone stele, which no longer had any value, and said, Once we leave, there will definitely be even more cultivators coming here to steal the inscriptions. Moreover, the inscriptions of the Heavenly Tome Steel Forest cannot be stolen by the dogs of the Empire. Someone smashed the stele. The Heavenly Tome Steel Forest can only be used by our Iha Kingdom. Yes. Two generals carrying warhammers dismounted from their horses and swung their warhammers. Just as they were about to descend, a fiery light suddenly exploded in the air, like an undying bird of fire. In the next moment, an expert wearing fire-red soft armor floated onto the stele. He narrowed his eyes at Qin Huan and the others, and indifferently said, It's fine if you want to steal the inscriptions, but you actually want to smash the stele. Do you know that this is a treasure trove left behind by God Emperor Fuxi after several hundred years? Qin Huan froze. Seeing the sacred heaven realm domain around the newcomer, he could not help but pale. You, who are you? One of the guardians of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, Zheng Jian. Zheng Jian raised his finger, and a flame flew out, directly burning the white cloth that Qin Huan and the others had finished drawing on. His voice was extremely cold as he said, I'll count to 3. Immediately scram from the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, or else I'll start a massacre. You. Qin Huan was furious. What right do you have to burn our inscriptions? Bastard, I don't care what kind of Saint Heaven realm you are. Since you dare to make an enemy of me here, you are making an enemy of the Iha nation. Men, kill him at all costs. As he spoke, Qin Huan leapt onto his horse and galloped for a few hundred meters. He escaped to the shelter of a group of bodyguards. Yi Xuanhuan raised his sword and said, Iron Armor Army, prepare to attack. Archers, get ready. One by one, the cavalrymen raised their steel shields and charged forward with all their might. It was completely like a confrontation between two armies. Zhang Jian didn't care too much. He raised his iron fist, and the fire spirit and raging flames danced around his fist. He punched out, and suddenly, a huge fiery red fist mark wreaked havoc in the air. After colliding with more than 10 people, it disappeared without a trace. Those people were all burned to ashes, and even their steel shields were melted, turning into a pool of fiery red molten iron that fell on the grass. Those who trespass into the heavenly tome monolith forest without permission, die. Zhang Jian leapt up and fiercely punched the ground with both fists. Immediately, with a bang, a wave of fire swept out in all directions. The several dozen cavalrymen from the Iha nation were pushed back again and again. Many of them were already on fire, screaming as they tumbled off their horses. Swish, swish, swish. Arrows fell like rain, and they were the latest crossbow bolts developed by the Iha nation. Their penetrative power was extremely tyrannical. Hey, Zhang Jian sneered. Suddenly, he looked up to the sky and let out a shrill cry. Flaming shields condensed around his body, deflecting all the arrows from the Iha nation. Even the white drill arrows could not penetrate this flaming shield. Like a bolt of lightning, Zhang Jian's figure flew forward and heavily punched Yi Xuanhuan's long sword. Clang! The flaming fist was as hard as iron, and it actually caused Yi Xuanhuan, who was at the Holy King realm, to take a few steps back with his horse. Zhang Jian's iron fist swung, and directly smashed the heads of the two Heaven Realm warriors who had come forward to attack him into pieces. He opened his hand and grabbed the neck of another Earth Realm warrior, and the flames burned his body inch by inch. Zhang Jian's eyes had turned red because of the massacre, and he shouted in a low voice, "Why are you still here? Do you want to be killed here?" Bastard! Yi Xuanhuan wanted to help, but he was powerless. The Holy King Realm Fire Fist in front of him was too powerful, and the flaming shield could defend against the arrows. It was as if there was no one who could stop him. At this moment, a loud and clear voice suddenly came from the sky. "You haven't even tasted my ice palm, and you want to leave?" Boom! A powerful frost energy descended, and a huge ice palm smashed into the ground, turning dozens of Iha country's armored cavalrymen into pieces. The huge palm print landed on the ground, and a dense icy aura spread out, causing people to shudder. Who is it this time? Qin Huan's mind was completely turned upside down. He had never faced so many peak experts before. Seeing the figure of Ice Palm Wutong landing on the ground, he immediately raised his long sword and said, "Spear and shield formation, surround him, and stab him into a hedgehog." A group of Iha nation soldiers pounced forward with their shields at the front, forming a circle in pairs. Spears pierced through the gaps between the shields, and went straight for Wutong. This was the classic strategy that the Empire had used for many years to defeat the enemy with numbers. But Ice Palm Wutong was not a battle general who would charge and break through enemy lines. He was a martial artist with a deep cultivation, so it was much easier for him to deal with this sort of battle technique. He took in a deep breath, and instantly, the power of the ice laws in the air was almost completely absorbed by him. In the next moment, Wutong's figure flickered, and he struck out with over 10 palms in a row. Bang, bang, bang. Shocking sounds rang out incessantly. Wave after wave of Ice Palm Wutong shattered the Iha nation's steel shields, and the palm force penetrated through the soldiers' bodies, killing them and freezing them into ice cubes at the same time. In the blink of an eye, the Iha nation soldiers retreated in all directions. Those who were slightly slower had already become corpses. Ice Palm Wutong stood where he was with a calm expression, and there were already over 100 corpses around him. The Holy Realm was equivalent to 1,000 people, and the God Realm was equivalent to 10,000 people. This wasn't an empty rumor. Pinnacle Saint Domain experts like Wu Tong and Zheng Jian could indeed kill 1,000 elite soldiers in a chaotic battle formation if they went all out. Demons, they're demons. Qin Huan's entire body trembled. He suddenly grabbed Yi Xuanhuan's wrist and said, "Commander Yi, quickly think of something. What should we do? The soldiers can't hold on any longer. You have to act." Yi Xuanhuan's expression was stern. "Your Highness, these two people are both at the peak of the Holy Domain. This general is not their match. It's said that a holy domain expert can fight against 1,000 people. We've only brought 1,000 soldiers, so we're not their match. Let's go, let's leave this place. We can't stay here for long, or else we might lose our lives. Qin Huan's heart was filled with unwillingness, but preserving his life was more important. He immediately grabbed the reins, spurred his horse around, and said, "Retreat, retreat for me. Leave this forest of monoliths." As he watched Qin Huan and the others leave, Wu Tong crossed his arms and sneered. "A motley crew. This is the legendary Iha nation? Heh, what a bunch of rookies." Zhang Jian clenched his fists and indifferently said, "It seems like the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest is truly about to appear. More and more people know about the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, and we're destined to be unable to defend it." "It doesn't matter," Wu Tong coldly said. "Aren't we the spiritual scholar Su Hao? His Heavenly Tome of Life can resurrect dead experts, and this place, the dead experts will very quickly become a fighting force to guard the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest." Humph. Zhang Jian looked at the corpses of the Iha Nation soldiers and said, "These rookies probably don't even have the qualifications to be a fighting force. Resurrecting them is just a waste of the Heavenly Tome." "That's true." At this moment, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin walked out of the shrubbery. "Successor." Zhang Jian and Wu Tong cupped their fists and respectfully bowed. Lin Muyu looked at the surrounding battle situation and said, "These people left?" "Yes, they were defeated and left." "That's good." Lin Muyu creased her brow, her gaze falling on a stone monolith in the shrubbery to the side. "Oh, another earthly tome stone monolith. Xiaoyin, go read it. If you don't understand any of the characters, ask me." Thank you, big brother you." Qin Yin gracefully walked forward, her hands on her knees. She stood in front of the stone monolith, her round and perky buttocks sticking out as she read the divine characters. She was extremely focused, and completely did not notice that Wu Tong and Zhang Jian were also absent-mindedly looking at her. On the other hand, Lin Muyu's heartbeat sped up. Not only was Qin Yin beautiful, her figure was also first-rate. The standard S-shaped curve was extremely rare in this plane, and if she were to assume this posture, it would practically take someone's life. "Big brother you, this character, I don't recognize it," Qin Yin suddenly said. "Oh," Lin Muyu walked forward and earnestly taught her. "This two horizontal and curved hooks is called the yin character, which is the yin character for floating clouds in the sky. As for this is the rong character, which is the rong character for a lifetime of military service, and this is the bing character for marching in battle." In the end, there were dozens of characters that Qin Yin did not recognize, and Lin Muyu had to teach her one by one. Furthermore, he had to control himself from reading the entire paragraph, or else the earthly tome on this monolith would be comprehended by him. It seemed that the higher the level of the earthly tome, the more characters there were. This earthly tome had close to 300 characters, and after reading all of them, Qin Yin was instantly stunned. The next moment, the stone monolith slowly crumbled into dust. This monolith had already been comprehended by Qin Yin, and it was an earthly tome of the law of ice. Its attack power was very impressive. The strength of Qin Yin's soul was not very strong, and suddenly showed signs of fainting. Lin Muyu hurriedly supported her, but in the end, Qin Yin's eyes were tightly shut, and she had already lost consciousness. Without any other choice, Lin Muyu could only give Qin Yin a princess carry. Looking at her peaceful yet tired face, her heart ached. "Successor, what do we do now?" Wu Tong asked. Lin Muyu said, "Rest for a night. When Xiao Yin recovers her soul power tomorrow, we will set off to Spirit Scholar Su Hao's place. I want to learn the earthly tome grade of inscription." "Yes. I don't know if Spirit Scholar Su Hao will be able to resist Luo Lan and the others," Lin Muyu said worriedly. Zhang Jian laughed, cupped his fists and said, "Successor, you don't have to worry too much. Su Hao's martial arts cultivation is definitely inferior to mine and Ice Palm Wu Tong's, but his heavenly tome cultivation is far above the two of us. In these 10,000 years, who knows how many heavenly tomes and divine tomes he has inscribed? And there are also many ghost generals on guard around Su Hao. Even if Luo Lan really does go, Suhao will be safe and sound. That's good. Chapter 529. That night, there were no tents, nor were there any places to sleep. Wu Tong and Zheng Jian usually slept outdoors, lying on a rock and sleeping. Lin Muyu had no choice but to take out the white robe from her cosmos sack and spread it on the grass. Then, she used a few pieces of paper to form a canopy over a tree branch to block the dew. Fortunately, the depths of the white leaves forest were like spring, and there was no cold wind at night. Although this small campsite could not block the wind, it was still pretty good. At the break of dawn, Qinin finally awoke. She felt that her soul was full, and her entire person was once more in high spirits. To the side, Lin Muyu was boiling a pot of swan and eye meat soup. Wu Tong and Zheng Jian had picked quite a few wild vegetables to cook together, and the taste seemed to be even better. A fragrance filled the surroundings, so much so that a few young wolves appeared in the forest, as if lured over by the fragrance. It's a swift wolf. Wu Tong smiled. What cute swift wolves. How long has it been since a swift wolf appeared in the white leaves forest? Zheng Jian's gaze was gentle. About 3,000 years. These 3 young wolves are so cute. Yeah. Wu Tong chuckled, and his figure suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, his 2 palms danced, slapping the 3 swift wolves to death. Carrying the corpses, he walked back and said with a smile, "Such cute swift wolves, the taste must be pretty good." Qinin. Lin Muyu. Not long after, the swan and eye meat was cooked. The 4 of them had a hearty meal, and prepared to set off. Lin Muyu did not summon Snowwalker again. It was fine to let it live in this forest for a few days. The deeper they went into the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, the more dangerous it would be. Although there were ice palms and fire fists guarding it, there was no guarantee that they would run into Luo Lan and the others. Lin Muyu did not want Snowwalker to follow in her father's footsteps and be slapped to death by Luo Lan's palm. After a night's rest, Lin Muyu's Do Qi and physical strength had recovered to their peak condition. Most of the injuries she had suffered the day before had also healed. Her combat strength had recovered to at least 90%. She was ready to adventure again. Maple trees, birch trees, and some unknown trees were everywhere in the dense forest. Moreover, there were natural stalagmites that broke through the soil in the fertile field. If one were to look closely at the material, one would realize that the stone tablets used to inscribe the heavenly tomes were made from these stalagmites. The 4 of them were not in a hurry. Right in front of them, a milky white stalagmite rose into the sky. It was about 100 meters tall, and looked like a spectacle. Lin Muyu and Qinin couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Zheng Jian smiled and explained, "All living things have spirits. In the White Leaves Forest, the rocks are the same. These rocks are the spirits of the mountains, just like the spirits in the air. They can grow on their own." Qinin was taken aback. She smiled and said, "You mean stones can also grow?" "Yes." Zheng Jian cupped his fists in a very serious manner and said, "Miss Qinin, the spirituality of stones comes from the earth element spirits. Stones originally came from the earth. Although the flame stone spirits are very slow and clumsy, they are also one of the most honest elements. Therefore, the heavenly tomes of the law of earth mostly exist as rock attacks. This, the successor should understand." Lin Muyu naturally understood. He had used the low-grade earthly tomes of the Law of Rock to attack Luo Lan. He had almost made Luo Lan's chrysanthemum bloom. This scene was something he could never forget. Thus he nodded and said, "Yes, as Zheng Jian said, stones can grow on their own." Qinin said cheerfully, "Oh, I know." Just like that, after they walked for a few kilometers, the number of stalagmites around them increased. It gave them the feeling that they had entered a stone forest. Suddenly, a powerful aura appeared in Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique. However, these auras were fluctuating violently as if something had happened. "What's going on?" Wu Tong also sensed something. He clenched his fists and said, "I think we should pick up our pace. Something must have happened up ahead." The 4 of them leapt up together, and in the blink of an eye, they had traveled several kilometers. However, they could only hear miserable howls coming from up ahead. In the open space of the forest, Behemoths with fiery red hair were lying there, howling. Some were already dead, while others had their arms and legs torn off, lying there waiting for death. What's going on? Lin Muyu was stunned. Who did this, these behemoths? It's the red-headed behemoths. Wu Tong said in a low voice. These behemoths are all spiritual beasts raised by the spiritual scholar. They assist him in guarding the heavenly tome forest of monoliths, but now they've been killed by someone. It's truly despicable. As far as Lin Muyu could see, there were at least 30 behemoths here. More than half of them were dead, while the rest were heavily injured and on the verge of death. Moreover, these behemoths' lifespans range from 12,000 to 15,000 years, so they were not weak. Who could have defeated the encirclement of so many red-headed behemoths, and even killed so many of them? The answer was as clear as day. Besides Luolan, who else could it be? After examining the corpses of the red-headed behemoths, they saw that their spirit stones had already been plundered. There were even some behemoths that were not heavily injured, but had a hole in their head. Their spirit stones had been taken just like that, but their bodies had been left behind to wait for death. The miserable howls they let out were extremely unbearable. Zheng Jian said, the bloodstains haven't completely dried up, so the intruder hasn't gone far. Let's hurry over. Perhaps the spiritual scholar needs our help. The intruder is too strong. Yes. Everyone rushed over with all their might. Along the way, they could see many earthly tombstone tablets, but no one had the intention to obtain the divine text. Lin Muyu's real target was the heavenly tombstone tablets in the deeper parts of the valley. Moreover, he was worried about the spiritual scholar, Su Hao's life and death, so he could not delay any longer. After traveling for about 5 kilometers, the sound of battle came from the front, and waves of divine energy enshrouded the valley. We've arrived at the spiritual grains. Zheng Jian clenched his fists tightly and dashed over the grass. He said, the spiritual scholar must have been attacked. God damn it, who are these people? Why are they so strong? Lin Muyu quickened his pace and activated the falling star steps. He rushed into the valley like a meteor. When he arrived at the valley, he was shocked by the scene in the distance. The corpses of nearly 50 red-headed behemoths were lying on the ground. In the distance, more than 10 hunting ghost generals and red-headed behemoths were engaged in a fierce battle with a group of people. Perhaps those people weren't humans, but gods. Luolan was among them. Divine energy enshrouded her palm, and her face was full of smiles. Behind her was a group of disciples from the 7 world palaces, and there was no lack of Saint Realm cultivators among them. However, the one with the strongest killing intent in the group was a woman dressed in a fiery red dress. Golden divine energy flowed between her arms. She was actually another God Realm cultivator. PFFF. The woman in red suddenly struck out with one arm, and flames surrounded her arm. Her palm directly pierced through the head of a red-headed behemoth. In the next moment, the warm spirit stone was forcibly plucked out by her. Fresh blood flowed everywhere, but her face was full of a satisfied smile. Her palm shone with a resplendent golden light, and a mysterious force rapidly disintegrated the spirit stone. Ho! The woman took a deep breath and absorbed the behemoth's spirit stone into her body. The satisfied expression on her face became even more exuberant, and she said with a smile, only the spirit beasts of the human world are so delicious. Wahahaha. Luolan, you've made the right choice to bring me here. Luolan smiled respectfully. As long as Dancing Flame Immortal is satisfied, you can enjoy all the spirit stones here. Good. The woman in red's smile became even wider. Don't worry, I won't forget about your benefits. After we obtain the 8 great divine books of laws, I will naturally give you 2 or 3 of them. Thank you, Dancing Flame Immortal. Luolan's face was full of smiles. At this time, a melodious flute sound suddenly came from the depths of the valley. In the distance, there were stone pillars carved with dragon patterns, and a handsome scholar sat on a white jade slab, playing the jade flute in his hand. The flute sound seemed to contain some kind of mysterious power, and the morale of the behemoths and hunting ghost generals, who were almost exhausted, was greatly boosted. They brandished their weapons and sharp claws and rushed towards Luolan and the others. Scholarling, This person must be Su Hao. Truly hateful. Luo Lan sneered and said, Men, go kill that weak scholar. He's the one who's causing trouble and ruined our plans. Go immediately. Yes, venerable immortal. A Saint Realm First Layer disciple flew over with a long sword in hand and raised his sword high up in the air. Suddenly, a towering wave of energy surged out from the long sword, and with a momentum that could split heaven and earth, the sword smashed down. Disciples of the 7 world palaces, each and every one of them had extraordinary skills. The flute sound stopped, and Scholar Ling suddenly opened his eyes, which shone with a faint green light. Suddenly, an iron fan appeared in his hand, and the golden divine runes carved on it glowed brightly. An indigo light shot up into the sky, and the energy of heaven and earth had already been drawn. It was a mid-grade heavenly book, The Law of Wind. Shwa. In the calm valley, countless invisible wind blades suddenly appeared, and in the blink of an eye, they gathered into a towering storm that swept out. What? The 7 world palaces' disciples in the air could not dodge in time, and their bodies abruptly shattered into pieces. As for Scholar Ling Su Hao, he lightly spun his iron fan, and the power of the heavenly book continued to wreak havoc. In an instant, 7 of the 7 world palaces' disciples were also shattered by the wind, and Luo Lan's expression was as ugly as it could be. Bastard! That red-robed girl roared in anger, and her pair of jade feet lightly stepped on the void, and she leaped into the air. She raised her tender arms, and a towering flame condensed in them as she said indifferently, "Break for me." Boom! The flame and the storm collided, and the sound of explosions rang out incessantly. The strong wind blew the entire valley into a purgatory. Successor, be careful. Wu Tong hurriedly stood in front of Lin Muyu, and with an ice palm, he blocked the stones that were blown over by the strong wind. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes. She was not afraid of this kind of attack, but she was extremely worried about Scholar Ling. She asked indifferently, "Who is that girl?" "A god king realm mid-god." Wu Tong replied indifferently, his eyes filled with battle intent. Chapter 530. Ouyang Yan, the divine monarch of fire dance, the god of truth from the heaven realm. At this time, Ouyang Yan's palms were filled with towering flames that seemed to illuminate the sky. This was not the power of the mortal realm. This was the power of a god, a real god. She was dressed in a fiery red muslin dress, and her mature and graceful figure was faintly discernible. She was extremely enchanting, and Ouyang Yan's appearance was like that of a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. Unfortunately, her beautiful face carried a vicious aura that did not match her appearance. The flame in her palm burned even more intensely. She looked charmingly at Su Hao, who was on the stone pillar, and smiled. "It's rare to see such a handsome scholar. Unfortunately, for the sake of the heavenly book, you must die here today. I don't have time to enjoy you anymore." Hong. The flames surged and rushed down like a torrential river. The divine monarch's flame power seemed to condense into magma. The impact and destructive power were not something that the mortal realm's flames could compare with. "You." Su Hao's clear eyes widened and he said lightly, "Ouyang Yan, don't go too far." With that, Su Hao suddenly flipped the jade flute in his hand. Suddenly, the divine text engraved at the bottom of the jade flute glowed with a golden luster. There were a total of 7 lines of divine text. No one knew how the divine text was engraved. For a moment, a faint golden light soared into the sky, instantly triggering the powerful heaven and earth force. Lin Muyu's heart sank. A low-grade divine book. My God! The jade flute in Scholar Ling's hand was actually the carrier of a low-grade divine book. This was a low-grade spiritual book embryo of the law of space. Golden rays of light swirled rapidly and formed a huge circular invisible shield nearly 100 meters around Su Hao with a buzzing sound. Venerable immortal flaming dance. Ouyang Yan's flame impact hit the shield with a bang 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 sound, but was unable to shake it. This was the power of a divine book. At this time, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin had arrived at the hillside together. They frowned as they watched the battle in the valley. "It seems that Scholar Ling doesn't need our help," Lin Muyu said. "No." Zhang Jian clenched his fists and said, "Even if it's a divine tome, it won't be able to last for too long." It'll take at most 30 minutes for the power of this inferior divine tome to be exhausted. At that time, I'm afraid that Scholar Ling won't be able to fight against so many people. He won't be a match for Ouyang and Luolan at all. Lin Muyu nodded. We'll wait for an opportunity. Ouyang stepped in the void, her skirt fluttering, revealing a pair of slender snow-white legs. She didn't care about anything else at all. She circulated fire-attributed god force from her palms and bombarded Scholar Ling's law of space barrier. She turned to Luolan and shouted, Luolan, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for me to exhaust my god force? I wouldn't dare. Luolan cupped her fists respectfully and shouted, Disciples of the 7 world palaces, listen up. Attack Scholar Ling together now. Instantly, close to 100 disciples from the 7 world palaces brandished their weapons. For a moment, the air was filled with dazzling light as weapons danced in the air. Long swords, battle axes, and spears pierced through the air, causing golden ripples to form on Scholar Ling's divine tome barrier. At this moment, the golden barrier's outer appearance was revealed. It was exceptionally resplendent. What a soul-stirring battle! Qin Yin was dumbfounded. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief. She couldn't help but feel her confidence take a heavy blow. This kind of battle was something she would never be able to experience in her entire life, right? Lin Muyu could sense Qin Yin's dismay. That's right, how could mortals hope to experience such a battle? Even Lin Muyu felt a little dispirited in her heart, let alone Qin Yin. He couldn't help but hold on to Qin Yin's dainty hand as he softly laughed. It's all right, as long as we continue to cultivate and improve, we will also ascend to godhood one day. Amen. Qin Yin's beautiful eyes reignited with hope as she nodded with a smile. We will. At this moment, in less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the golden spatial barrier formed by the low-grade divine tome was already on the verge of breaking apart. It had absorbed too much energy, causing cracks to appear on its surface, and it looked like it was about to collapse. If Scholar Ling didn't have a second divine tome to defend against Ouyang, he would most likely be buried under Ouyang's divine flames. Clang. Lin Muyu pulled out her stellar sword and said in a low voice, Wutong Zhengjian, we're preparing to attack. Xiaoyin, be careful. Amen. Yes, successor. The 4 of them dashed down the mountain and headed straight for the battlefield. Lin Muyu was the fastest with the falling star step, and she fell down the mountain like a green meteor. Just as Scholar Ling's golden barrier disappeared, Lin Muyu landed in front of him with a bang. The tattered hunter's cloak fluttered behind her, and she brandished her stellar sword with a dazzling radiance. The 7 luminaries' celestial sword instantly formed, and as Lin Muyu waved her long sword, a golden dragon blood battle shield instantly formed in the air, replacing the defensive power of the heavenly tome. Buzz. Seeing the golden dragon blood battle shield forming in front of her, Ouyang, who was in the air, was also stunned. Her beautiful eyes looked through the dragon blood battle shield, and saw that the young man wielding the sword was actually an extremely handsome swordsman. Moreover, his eyes revealed a determination and arrogance that Scholar Ling didn't have. This was a handsome man with a completely different temperament from Scholar Ling. In an instant, Ouyang's heart trembled. Holding a raging flame in her palm, she indifferently said, Young man, who are you? Lin Muyu raised her head to look at her, and the hostility between her brows became even stronger. She said, The person who guards the heavenly tome monolith forest. Ouyang, I advise you to stop. As a god of the heavenly realm, you actually participate in the struggles of the mortal realm. You are truly a disgrace to the heavenly realm. What did you say? Ouyang's phoenix eyes narrowed, and she said, Do you think I want to come to the mortal realm? If you have the guts, say it again. Lin Muyu still raised her head to look at her, only to see the violent wind formed by the king's battle flame blowing Ouyang's skirt wildly. Lin Muyu said, As a god, you must have the dignity of a god. As a god, you wear pink underwear and fight here. What kind of propriety is that? Ouyang was about to explode. She actually let this brat see the color of her underwear today. It was simply too embarrassing. In an instant, Yang Yan's heart once again began to thump. This brat's words were so wild, it was truly likable. Unfortunately, he was Scholar Ling's man. Today, for the divine book, she must kill him. Young man. Yang Yan calmed the anger in her heart and said indifferently, "If you leave now, I can spare your life. If you insist on being my enemy, then today, you will become one of the corpses here." Lin Muyu did not speak. Luo Lan said with a face full of anger, "Dancing Flame Immortal, you don't need to talk nonsense with him. This brat is the Empire's valiant Dragon Legion's commander, Lin Muyu, our old enemy. Look at the star sword in his hand. It is the substandard divine weapon that I gave you but he took away." "Is that so?" Yang Yan's beautiful face twisted and she said, "Good you. Today, I must be ruthless." Flames danced wildly in the air. Yang Yan was a god of fire law, and her comprehension of fire was probably higher than Fire Fist Zhengjian's. She gently raised her arms and suddenly waved them. Thousands of flames fell from the sky, directly rushing towards Lin Muyu's dragon blood shield. Bang bang bang. The sound of explosions did not stop, and in the blink of an eye, Lin Muyu's blood was boiling, and she vomited a mouthful of blood. Fighting against such a level of opponent, it was good enough that she was not instantly killed. How could she resist? The dragon blood shield was shattered before it could even finish eating this move. Lin Muyu was forced to take several steps back, and she fell beside Scholar Ling miserably. "Successor." Zheng Jian quickly went forward to help her up. Scholar Ling was shocked. "Zheng Jian, he is the successor?" "That's right, he has a portion of Emperor God Fushi's divine power." "Oh my god! We have finally waited for Fushi's successor?" Scholar Ling was surprised. At this time, Wu Tong had already waved his palm and rushed towards Yang Yan in the air. The light of his ice palm exploded, and it collided with Yang Yan's divine fire. The explosion of energy shook the entire valley. But after 7 or 8 moves, Wu Tong was already at a disadvantage, and even the clothes on his arm were burned by Yang Yan's divine king. "Let me help you." Zheng Jian rose from the ground, and his fiery fist smashed towards Yang Yan. "You came at the right time." Yang Yan was a madwoman. The stronger her opponent, the more excited she became. Her palms were filled with raging flames, and she wasn't at a disadvantage even when fighting 1 against 2. "Kill, clean up all the hunting ghost generals and behemoths." Luo Lan freed her hand and gave an order. Together with the other disciples, they began to clear the spirit beasts that Scholar Ling had raised. Lin Muyu barely managed to calm the surging blood and qi in her body. She stood up and used the star's sword to support her body. She raised her head and looked at the scene of Ice Palm and Fire Fist fighting against Dancing Flame God King. They couldn't decide who was stronger in a short period of time, so she raised her sword. She had to stop Luo Lan and the others. Once the 7 world palaces got rid of Scholar Ling's strength, her side would have no chance of victory. "Successor." Scholar Ling seemed to have seen through Lin Muyu's thoughts and said, "Successor doesn't have to worry. This place can be given to Yang Yan and Luo Lan. Successor must not take any risks." "Oh." Lin Muyu was surprised. Scholar Ling's lips curled into a faint smile, and he said, "You and this lady come to my side. In a while, I will call Wu Tong and Zheng Jian back, and we will go to the Heavenly Book Shrine 5 kilometers away. Let them have this place." Lin Muyu's thoughts were meticulous, and she had already guessed that Scholar Ling definitely had a high-level teleportation Heavenly Book of the Law of Space. Holding the star's sword, she stood to the side to protect Scholar Ling. Meanwhile, Qin Yin had already unsheathed her heaven-subduing sword, and the true dragon god binding chains revolved around her, ready to enter the battle at any time. Right at this moment, Yang Yan, who was fighting the Ice Palm and Fire Fist in the air, actually had the time to look over. She discovered Qin Yin beside Scholar Ling, and her body instantly trembled. Her face turned pale, and she thought to herself, "This girl actually has such a peerless beauty, even above mine. How can I allow her to live in this world?" "Wu Tong, Zheng Jian, come back!" Lin Muyu suddenly shouted. In the air, Wu Tong and Zheng Jian took the opportunity to catch their breaths, and they leaped back to the ground. At the same time, they blasted the power of several ice palm and fire fist at Ouying Yan, who was in the air, and forced her to retreat. Scholar Ling waved his hand lightly, and a golden dagger appeared. A golden ray of light soared into the sky, drawing upon the power of heaven and earth. It was another low-grade heavenly book. Buzz! The surrounding white waves of air swirled rapidly, as if some kind of mechanism was activated. The next moment, Lin Muyu and Qinin only saw a flash of light in front of their eyes, and the few of them had already appeared in a dark hall from the fierce battle in the valley. Heavenly Book Shrine. Chapter 531. The entire Heavenly Book Shrine didn't have a roof. It was just a circular shrine that was surrounded by huge stone pillars. The ground of the shrine was carved out of a huge rock. Rays of golden light enshrouded it. In the surroundings of the shrine, there were a total of 8 golden stone tablets that were glowing with a faint glow. Divine characters were flashing on them. Clearly, they were the legendary divine character stone tablets. That is a divine book? Qinin asked with her beautiful eyes wide open. Wu Tong nodded. Yes. Spiritual scholar turned around and cupped his fists respectfully. Successor, although the Heavenly Book Shrine has an illusion restriction, with God King Huowu's abilities, she definitely won't be able to resist her for long. We can't stay here for long. Successor, please immediately comprehend the divine books on the stone tablets. These divine books are priceless treasures that God Emperor Fuxi left for you in the Shattered Cauldron realm. There are a total of 8 stone tablets here, and they record the 8 laws of wind, fire, thunder, earth, ice, light, life, and space. Successor, there is no need to say much. Please immediately read and comprehend them. Our time is very limited. And got it. Lin Muyu quickly arrived in front of a divine book stone tablet. It was a divine character of the law of fire. The oracle bone inscriptions on it were glowing with a faint golden glow. There were no labels, so Lin Muyu had to divide the sections by herself. There were more than 1,000 long and short inscriptions. This was truly a little terrifying. The divine books were indeed much longer and more complicated than the earthly book and heavenly book. Shwa. Lin Muyu's spiritual sense entered the stone tablet. One by one, the golden inscriptions flew past her mind. It was as though they were imprinted in her mind. As she read them word by word, her surroundings suddenly turned into a sea of fire. There were ashes everywhere. Between heaven and earth, there were only surging flames and torrential flames. Living beings were wailing and crying. Above the sky, a beam of fire descended. It was a sovereign god emperor. Fire god. When the fire god general raised the sharp sword in his hand high up in the air, raging flames quickly swept across the land, destroying the entire plain. Ah! Lin Muyu suddenly let out a miserable howl and stumbled back a few steps. A paragraph of divine text seeped into his eye and was hard to forget. The stone tablet slowly cracked, and a wisp of flame contained within the stone tablet lingered around Lin Muyu. Then, it slowly merged with his fighting flame. Lin Muyu only felt an unimaginable sense of exhaustion. He couldn't help but murmur, Fire Attribute Divine Book. Fire God Armageddon? Qinin gently held his arm and asked with concern, Have you comprehended it? Lin Muyu gently hugged Qin Yin's shoulder and said, Shaoyin, help me to the other stone tablet. I still have some spiritual energy left, so I should be able to comprehend another one. All right. The two of them stepped on the blue stone and came before another stone tablet. It was a wind element divine tome. Lin Muyu forced herself to focus her gaze on the divine text, and her spiritual perception quickly flew into the stone tablet. Just like before, she soon entered the illusory realm created by the divine tome. Strong winds howled in the surroundings, and tornadoes raged between the heavens and earth, tearing the cities apart and crushing the residences of the common people. The land was filled with wails and cries. Wind element divine tome, storm dragon spin. In the blink of an eye, nearly 1,200 divine characters of storm dragon spin were imprinted in Lin Muyu's heart, and the golden stone tablet also shattered with a crack. Ugh! Lin Muyu took a deep breath, and his entire body was filled with fatigue. At this time, A faint golden luster had already appeared on his beer. Scholar Ling looked at him in surprise, and said, you comprehended the divine power of 2 divine books in one go. I'm afraid your strength is not enough. Don't force yourself anymore. 2 hours have passed, and we don't have much time left. I'm afraid God Monarch Huowu will bring people here soon. It's already been 2 hours? Lin Muyu was shocked. Yes. He never thought that a short moment in Lin Muyu's eyes would take so long. He frowned and said, Can these divine writings be taken away? Scholar Ling said, You can make a rubbing and take it away, but the rubbing can only take away the surface of the divine text. The guiding divine power left behind by God Emperor Fuxi in the stone tablet cannot be obtained. Even if you obtain the complete divine text, unless you are a genius, I'm afraid it will be difficult to write it into a divine book. At most, it will be a heavenly book or an earthly book. Lin Muyu nodded. Is there a way to delay Ouyang Yan and Luo Lan? Yes. Scholar Ling frowned and said, There is an extremely powerful existence imprisoned in the mountain beside the divine book shrine, the Beeman King. Back then, God Emperor Fuxi spent a lot of effort to tame him. But these years, without the deterrence of Fuxi's divine power, the Beeman King has become increasingly violent and no longer listens to his subordinates' orders. If the heir really has Fuxi's divine power, don't give it a try, the Beeman King might submit again. Alright then, bring me there. Yes. When passing by a divine book stone tablet, Lin Muyu glanced at it. It was a divine book of the law of light. He said, Xiao Yin, read this stone tablet here, and try to comprehend it. Wait for me to come back. If there are any divine texts that you don't understand, I will teach you later. Then alright then. Qinyin originally wanted to see the Beeman King, but for the sake of the divine book, she had no choice. On the side of the mountain rock, lines of intersecting runes appeared. Wu Tong walked forward and lightly pressed his palm on the giant rock. With a low shout, a door opened. It was actually a secret chamber. When the door was opened, a fishy and rotten smell wafted over. Furthermore, Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique immediately had an intense reaction. The aura power in front of them was extraordinarily strong. It was even stronger than Scholar Ling, Ice Palm Fire Fist, and the intensity of the aura power was not inferior to Ouyang Yan's. Walking down the damp and cold stone steps, Zhang Jian raised his hand and lit a torch. He held the torch and walked in front, illuminating Lin Muyu, Scholar Ling, and the others. The path in the cave wasn't too far away. However, when Lin Muyu took a closer look, she realized that the 2 sides of the stone path were actually suspended in the air. Looking over, it was as though she could see the stars in the sky. Scholar Ling saw this and couldn't help but laugh. Successor, this is an illusion left behind by God Emperor Fuxi. It is called the Star Vast Realm. It can seal all powers, so although the Beeman King is strong, he is unable to show off his might here. The Star Vast Realm can see through tens of thousands of stars in the celestial domain. However, don't fall down. This illusion leads directly to the purgatory plane. Oh, Lin Muyu couldn't help but be speechless. This place was too dangerous. The suspended stone path extended into the distance, and directly connected to a punishment platform that was carved out of a giant rock. On the punishment platform, there was a giant beast kneeling. Its body was no different from the Beeman King, but the hair on its head was indeed golden. Its hands were pierced by chains and it was hung between 2 giant stone pillars. There were many runes circulating on the chains. If it wasn't for these runes, it probably wouldn't have been able to seal such a strong Beeman King. Sha. Wu Tong and Zheng Jian walked in front, one on the left and one on the right. They stepped onto the giant rock and split up. Zheng Jian was hot-tempered and he hollered, Beeman King, raise your head. However, the Beeman King, who had his head lowered, didn't raise it. Instead, his hands that were locked extended out sharp claws. The sharp claws gave off a chilling glow under the starlight. The Beeman King's voice was a little hoarse. He didn't even raise his head and smiled. Ice Palm and Fire Fist, what are you doing here? Aren't you afraid that I will tear you apart? Afraid? Of course I am. Zheng Jian clenched his fist and said, However, you are locked up now. I can let you have a taste of my fist. The Beeman King laughed coldly. You rats only know how to take advantage of others. If I can get out, I will definitely cut you into pieces. Oomph. Scholar Ling held an iron fan in his hand and opened it with a schwa sound. The ribs of the fan were suffused with faint divine light. He said, Demon King, you don't know what's good for you. Raise your dog head. The successor of His Majesty God Emperor Fuxi is already here. If you dare to be so disrespectful, don't blame me for chopping off your dog head. Ah! The Demon King's lowered body suddenly trembled. He slowly raised his head. It was a face that was filled with a ruthless aura. He looked at Lin Muyu and couldn't help but laugh loudly. His laughter was filled with penetrating power and was extremely arrogant and unruly. This weak kid? Impossible. His Majesty God Emperor would never allow such a weak kid to be his successor. Impudent! Scholar Ling shouted in a low voice. His Majesty's successor is right here. Don't be so arrogant. As he said that, he signaled to Lin Muyu that it was time to show off his strength. Lin Muyu nodded her head and hollered. The king battle flame surged around her body. At the same time, she opened her fingers and streaks of golden Fuxi God power flowed in her palm. Instantly, the entire star vast habitat seemed to be affected by Fuxi's God power, causing it to twist slightly. There were even many giant stars in the sky that started to descend. Along with many meteors flying around, the star vast habitat instantly became a dangerous place. Ah! This? The Demon King knelt there in shock. His hands couldn't move at all. He could only raise his head and look at the successor of God Emperor Fuxi. Wu Tong frowned and said, Star vast habitat is about to be destroyed. Scholar Ling, quickly remove the seal on the Demon King. Let's head out and talk. Anyway, the successor is here and we aren't afraid that the Demon King will go berserk once more. Okay. The spiritual scholar Su Hao gently waved his iron-boned fan. Immediately, the golden sealing runes on the Demon King's shackles dispersed one by one. With a kacha sound, the iron chains that shackled the Demon King's arms cracked and disappeared. Hua! The Demon King took in a deep breath like he was relieved of a huge burden. He still knelt there. Along with the trembling of the star vast habitat, his body also trembled. He raised his head and a fierce glow appeared in his eyes. As if Scholar Ling had seen through Zhongyu's thoughts, he said, If you want to kill the inheritor, then go ahead. But you must know that if you hurt the inheritor, no matter where you run, the Fuxi celestial monarch of the human realm beyond heavens will find you and turn you into ashes. He will also annihilate your beaming celestial race and make you disappear from the universe. The Demon King shuddered and the fierceness in his eyes disappeared. Very quickly, he knelt on the ground like a tame dog. The king of the Demon race is willing to listen to the successor's orders. I have no regrets. Lin Muyu smiled. Let's head out first. Okay. Chapter 532. Hong Hong Hong. When the five of them flew out of the cave, the star vast habitat behind them exploded. The entire star vast habitat had been destroyed by Lin Muyu's Fuxi power. Rumbling sounds spread out from within the mountain. In the blink of an eye, the entire mountain range collapsed and turned into a deep abyss. Looking down, one couldn't see the bottom at all. What is it? Qinyin quickly went up and asked with concern. Her eyes landed on the Demon King behind Lin Muyu and she became wary. What is that? It's okay. Lin Muyu grabbed her soft little hand and asked, How many words do you not know? 128. Oh my God, there are over 1,000 words and you don't recognize so many of them. Aye. Qinyin pouted, feeling extremely wronged as she said, I've only studied the divine text for less than 2 months. Ever since the heavenly imperial gate was sealed, all of the heavenly tomes lost their effectiveness, and the divine text teachers on the continent were immediately frozen and disintegrated. So besides those heavenly tomes families, no one else studies the divine text. Okay. Lin Muyu smiled. Let me teach you the divine writings first. N. Qinyin smiled and nodded her head. Ling Shu said, Then, what will the Demon King do? Lin Muyu turned around and looked at the Demon King. Demon King. Yes, heir. The Demon King knelt down obediently. I will listen to your orders. Lin Muyu said. You and Ice Palm and Fire Fist will go against the enemy. You have to block Ouyang Yan and Luolan. Do you understand? God. The Demon King suddenly became excited, his eyes filled with killing intent. He smiled. There are actually gods in the mortal world? That's great, that's great. Wu Tong, Zheng Jian, the two of you trash, bring me to fight the enemy. Wu Tong and Zheng Jian were so furious that they wanted to beat him up. However, the Demon King was too strong. Even if the two of them worked together, they might not be his match. They could only swallow their anger and nod their heads. They cupped their fists towards Lin Muyu, and the three of them left the Heavenly Book God Hall. Within 10 minutes, Lin Muyu had taught Qin Yin all the oracle bone inscriptions that she did not understand. Then, she found another stone tablet, and began to comprehend the third book. Divine Book of the Law of Life, Revival of the Gods. When Lin Muyu finished reading the divine text, her state of mind quickly entered the illusion brought by the divine text. A desolate land was filled with raging flames and destruction. Countless forests were being ravaged by the flames of war and heavenly flames. The forests were burning, and the common people were crying. Countless people who were seriously ill or seriously injured were struggling at death's door in the mud. At this moment, heavy rain started to fall from the sky. The sky was filled with dense divine light as a 36E Dominator God Emperor appeared above the clouds. Her beautiful eyes were filled with compassion. She held a bamboo flute in her hand and gently blew it. The land that was being destroyed was moved. In an instant, countless raindrops containing healing sacred light fell on the mortal world. The heavenly flames were extinguished, and the injuries of the living beings on the ground rapidly healed. Auspicious clouds appeared in the sky, and the mortal world was healed in the blink of an eye. The goddess of life smiled as she looked at the mortal world. She put down the bamboo flute and lightly stepped on the void. She brought the trembling 36E towards the heaven realm. Swish! An imprint was branded on Lin Muyu's heart. She had also comprehended the divine book of the law of life. But at this time, Lin Muyu's heart was filled with fatigue. Her forehead was covered with sweat. Successor, don't force yourself anymore. The spirit scholar couldn't bear to watch from the side. He said, I only comprehend one divine book every 3,000 years. You have already comprehended 3 divine books in just a few hours. That's enough, don't force yourself anymore. However, Lin Muyu knew that she could not let go of this precious opportunity. Otherwise, she might not have such an opportunity in the future. She forced herself to stand up and said, I'm fine. Let me rest for a few minutes. I need to comprehend 4 godly tomes before I can leave. Scholar Ling, go and copy the remaining 3 godly tomes for me. If we can't bring these godly tomes away, we can only destroy them. Yes. The spirit scholar cupped his fists and said, I understand. Even if we can't use these divine books for ourselves, we definitely can't let Ouyang Yan, Luolan, or the other fierce gods obtain them. That's right. Go. When the spirit scholar went to copy the other 3 divine books, Lin Muyu had already arrived in front of the tablet of the 4th divine book. It was a divine book of the law of thunder and lightning. Thunder and lightning were the most difficult force to control. Presumably, it wouldn't be easy to comprehend the divine book of the law of thunder and lightning. At this time, Lin Muyu had a new understanding of the divine books. The divine books were like scrolls. Just like in those fantasy stories, activating the scrolls would bring about great power. On the other hand, the divine books were like the forbidden spells in the fantasy world. A divine book was the carrier of the forbidden spells. In the future, the Shattered Cauldron realm would be a battle between the forbidden spells. Pa pa pa. When Lin Muyu's palm covered the stone tablet, a bolt of lightning slowly flowed through. It seemed that this stone tablet originally contained some thunder divine power. When she turned around, she saw Qin Yin concentrating on studying the more than 1,000 words of the Law of Light divine text. She didn't know if she could comprehend it. If she couldn't, she could only copy it down and study it properly when she returned to Lanyan City. In the blink of an eye, countless bolts of lightning had already appeared in Lin Muyu's Yi. Bolts of lightning rained down on the undulating Yi. Thunder elemental law, raging thunder purgatory. There were more and more lightning bolts in the Ihai. After an unknown period of time, the illusion of purgatory appeared in Lin Muyu's Ihai. In a fiery red purgatory, evil spirits howled and ownerless souls cried incessantly. Countless bolts of lightning flashed and fell from the sky, forming a destructive lightning net. It was as if the entire purgatory was going to be destroyed. Lin Muyu's spiritual sense stood in the purgatory. Scorching tornadoes of lightning swept across her face, causing her cloak to whistle. It was really a little scary. After enduring an unknown amount of violent lightning, finally, the Ihai gradually calmed down. The violent power quickly rushed into Lin Muyu's beer. The stone tablet shattered, and Lin Muyu knelt on the ground. Comprehending 4 divine books in a row had far exceeded the endurance of her soul, and she quickly fainted. On the side, Qin stood there in a daze, surrounded by a golden light. She had entered the critical stage of the divine book of the law of light. Holy light brilliance. Less than 10 seconds after Lin Muyu fainted, the stone tablet in front of her broke into 2 with a crack. The divine power in the stone tablet flowed into her body. She also comprehended it and fainted. Sigh. Ling Shu looked at Lin Muyu and Qin who had fainted on the ground and couldn't help but feel helpless. He said, "What should we do? I don't know if the Demon King and the others can resist Ouyang Yan and Luo Lan. What should we do? The successor and this young lady are also unconscious. What should we do? What should we do?" At this moment, a loud noise came from outside the Heavenly Book Shrine. A giant demon beast waved its sharp claws and rushed in. It shouted at Ling Shu from afar, but no one knew what it was saying. Ling Shu frowned. "What? Luo Lan has already brought people over? They are a mile away? Oh my god!" Ling Shu clenched his teeth. "We can't wait any longer. We must destroy this place and bring the successor away." As he spoke, he pounced forward and waved his iron-boned fan. His battle energy flew out and smashed the remaining 3 divine tomes. He turned around and carried Lin Muyu and Qin to the center of the shrine. Another cyan iron-boned fan appeared in his hand. As he waved it slowly, he drew the power of heaven and earth. It was a middle-grade heavenly book of the law of space. Swoosh. Air currents swirled, and the 3 of them disappeared from where they stood. The giant demon beast was stunned. It extended its sharp claws in the direction of Ling Shu as if it was saying, "Wait for master, what about me?" Behind him, a crack appeared in the space. Luo Lan, who was wearing a long robe, appeared in the sky. She looked at the broken divine tomes and cursed angrily. "I'm too late again. Ling Shu, you bastard. I will definitely tear you into pieces." Roar. The giant demon beast roared angrily at Luo Lan who was in the sky. "Little worm, you want to kill me?" Luo Lan was frustrated that she had nowhere to vent her anger. She raised her hand and sent a palm strike at the demon beast. The poor demon beast couldn't even withstand a single blow, and was instantly smashed into pieces. At this time, a large number of disciples from the 7 world palaces rushed into the valley. All of them stared dumbfoundedly at the destroyed mountain range and the heavenly book shrine. Lu Zhan slowly walked forward and said, "Master, the forest of divine tomes is gone. The 8 divine tomes are all in ruins. Ai, we are still too late." Luo Lan snorted coldly. Ling Shu used the heavenly book of the law of space to escape. He can't have gone far. Chase after him. Right at this moment, another disciple stood in front of a stone stele and said, "Master, look, there's a piece of divine scripture that hasn't been completely destroyed here. It's the laws of light, but it's broken into 2. If we glue it back together, then perhaps we'll be able to form a complete divine scripture." "Is that so?" Luo Lan's heart skipped a beat and she said happily, "Quick, stick the stone tablet back together and bring it back to the 7 world palaces." "Yes, master." Lu Zhan furrowed his brows and said, "Master, the dancing fire god monarch Ouyang Yan is still fighting with the Demon King, and the ice palm fire fist outside the valley. Should we go help her? If Ouyang Yan is killed, I'm afraid it would be a great loss to our Iha country." "Humph." Luo Lan snorted coldly and said, "Ouyang Yan is naturally arrogant. She's just a crippled god whose godhood was stolen. After descending into the human world, she actually surpassed me. How hateful." Let her fight. It's best if she dies, but even if she doesn't die, it won't be any better. The news about this piece of divine text must be kept a secret. Ouyang cannot know about it. Do you understand? Yes, disciple understands. Chapter 533. In a gloomy and cold bare cave, the light of a jade pendant slowly flowed, illuminating the cave. Scholar Ling's entire body was trembling, his arms hugging his knees as he sat there. His expression was rather tired, and his once handsome face was already lined with wrinkles. His black hair was already beginning to turn white. To the side, Lin Muyu and Qinin lay side by side, their bodies covered by a bare skin. The two were still sleeping, and this was already the 7th day. Lin Muyu slowly awoke from her unconsciousness. When she opened her eyes, she saw the gradually aging appearance of Scholar Ling's successor. You're finally awake. Scholar Ling excitedly exclaimed. How did you? Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Su Hao, how did you become like this? Scholar Ling awkwardly replied. In order to avoid the pursuit of God King Huowu and Luo Lan, we could only bring you to the edge of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. The divine power of the time seal here is already rather weak, so this subordinate's life is quickly fading. Reverting to my old appearance is to be expected. After all, I've already lived for more than 10,000 years. Divine power of the time seal? Lin Muyu could not help but ask. If I use Fushi's divine power, can I restore your appearance? Perhaps. Scholar Ling also did not know the result. But it's best to leave the successor's divine power for him to use. This subordinate cannot waste the successor's divine power. No. Lin Muyu left no room for doubt as she stopped him. Just sit quietly. As she spoke, Lin Muyu sat cross-legged and gave a soft cry. Instantly, golden light exploded from her body. Fushi's divine power flew out from her body and into Scholar Ling like a ribbon. Strands of it seeped into Scholar Ling's sea of consciousness, and a miraculous sight occurred. Scholar Ling's grizzled hair gradually returned to black, and the wrinkles on his face also slowly lessened. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and continued to use his divine power to heal Scholar Ling's old age. He was completely unaware that Qinin had also woken up, and was staring at him with her beautiful eyes wide open. Not long after, Scholar Ling regained his appearance from 7 days ago. He knelt down joyfully and said, Thank you, successor, for using your power to heal me. You're welcome. Lin Muyu turned around and saw Qinin. She couldn't help but smile. Xiaoyin, you're awake too. How do you feel now? After absorbing the power of the divine book, Qin Yin's cultivation and state of mind had improved greatly. She smiled and replied, It's very good. I feel that my cultivation has improved. That's good. Lin Muyu asked Scholar Ling, How many days have we been hiding here? Scholar Ling replied, 7 days and 7 nights. So long. Lin Muyu couldn't help but knit her brows and said, How are the Beeman King Wu Tong and Zheng Jian? They're all right. Scholar Ling sat cross-legged and said respectfully, Before God Emperor Fuxi ascended to the sky beyond heaven, he placed a restriction on us. We can feel each other's life force. They're only seriously injured and not in danger of dying. On the other hand, Ouyang and Luo Lan's subordinates suffered heavy losses. Many of their divine domain experts died. They really deserved it. Lin Muyu said, They should have taken away many of the heavenly books, right? Yes. Scholar Ling replied truthfully. Ouyang and Luo Lan made a total of 13 heavenly books, over 30 earthly books, and countless spiritual books and human books from the heavenly book forest. However, they were just rubbings. Even if they were given to a specialist to study, the chances of them becoming a book would be very low. The heavenly books were created by God Emperor Fuxi, so it's not that easy to become a book. Yes. Lin Muyu said worriedly. It seems like a heavenly book war between the Empire and the Iha country is unavoidable. Qinin nodded her head and said nothing. Scholar Ling smiled and said, Successor, you don't have to worry too much. The heavenly books that you've comprehended are all-encompassing. As long as you learn the heavenly books, you'll be able to inscribe the heavenly books and earthly books of the same law. A heavenly book already contains all the heavenly books of the same law, so successor just needs to properly study the heavenly books of the 8 laws. Yes, that's great. Lin Muyu said. Have Ouyang Yen and Luolan's men left yet? They couldn't find us. They left the White Leaves Forest 3 days ago. Scholar Ling cupped his fists and said, Successor, it's already safe outside. Let's go out. This subordinate needs some time to rebuild the Heavenly Book Forest's defenses. I believe that the cultivators of this continent will come endlessly to cause trouble for the Heavenly Book Forest. Yes. The 3 of them crawled out of the cave. This bear cave was dozens of meters deep. It was no wonder that Luo Lan, Ouyang Yen, and the others couldn't find them. It must have been difficult for Scholar Ling to find such a place to hide. Within the White Leaves Forest, there were smashed spiritual tomes and human tomes everywhere. Those who saw it could not help but feel a little ashamed. Humans should be most proficient in destruction. The Heavenly Book Forest of monoliths that Fushi had painstakingly left behind had actually been mostly destroyed after this battle. Scholar Ling's heart ached, and his eyes were filled with sorrow. They didn't walk too far before the sharp howls of experts could be heard in the distance. In the next moment, 3 figures appeared in the forest. They were the Beeman King, Wu Tong and Zheng Jian. This subordinate pays his respects to successor. Successor is fine. This is truly great. Zheng Jian said respectfully. The Beeman King was also kneeling on the ground. There was a huge burn wound on his shoulder, which had scorched his hair. There was even a wound on his shoulder that had burst open and flowed with fresh blood. Presumably, this was the masterpiece that Ouyang Yen had left behind. Lin Muyu nodded. Is everyone all right? We're fine. Lin Muyu walked forward and took out a bottle of first-grade healing medicine from her cosmos sack. She handed it to the Beeman King and said, This bottle of medicine can heal your injuries. Use it immediately. The injury caused by Ouyang Yan's godly power can't be healed with ordinary medicine. Many thanks, successor. The Beeman King received the healing medicine with some suspicion. Probably when God Emperor Fushi was in the mortal realm, he had not been so kind to him. When the healing medicine was poured on his wound, a cool and comfortable feeling came from his wound. The Beeman King could not help but let out a gasp. A rather obvious healing feeling came from his wound. This was indeed a good medicine. He could not help but kowtow again and said, Many thanks, successor. You're welcome. Lin Muyu looked at the 4 people and said, Xiao Yin and I are about to leave the White Leaves Forest. You guys continue to guard the Heavenly Book Forest. You must take care of yourselves and cultivate as much as possible. When you step into the deity realm, come find me in Lanyan City. Understood? Yes, successor. Go. Yes. The 4 people turned around reluctantly, especially the Beeman King. He actually turned his head back to look at Lin Muyu. It was not easy for him to meet such a benevolent master. In the blink of an eye, he was about to part with her. He was quite reluctant. Thinking about it, Fushi must have beaten the Beeman King many times in the past because of his violent temperament. Not long after, the treading snow warhorse charged out of the forest and happily paced back and forth beside its master. Lin Muyu laughed heartily and caressed Treading Snow's long face. She stroked its fur and said, Consider yourself lucky that you did not get eaten by the Beeman these past few days. Treading Snow let out a long neigh and stood on its hind legs. It seemed to be saying that it ran fast and the Beeman could not catch up. After resting for a while and eating, Lin Muyu and Qin Yin changed into a new set of hunter's clothes. He then mounted the horse and extended his hand to Qin Yin. He smiled and said, It seems that before we return to White Leaf City, we can only ride on the same horse. Qin Yin blushed and very quickly mounted the horse and sat in Lin Muyu's embrace. She immediately felt very safe. The warhorse neighed and in the blink of an eye, galloped out of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. Hiya! Hiya! The sound of horses galloping came from outside the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest. It was a group of Iha Empire mercenaries carrying battle axes, longbows and other weapons. This group of people had probably just received the news of the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest, and had come to die. Many of the Beemans that Ling's scholar had tamed in the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest were injured, and needed to eat meat to recover from their injuries. Hey, that kid. A large man with a face full of curly beard carried a broadsword and urged his horse forward. He shouted, "Did you guys come out from the Heavenly Tome Monolith Forest?" "Nope." Lin Muyu urged his horse forward and returned to his horse. He said, "My sister and I are hunters from White Leaves City. This time, we came to the White Leaves Forest to hunt a kind of spiritual beast called the forked bear and use its paw to treat father's illness. However, we didn't expect that there were no forked bears in this area. Those spiritual beasts are incomparably savage. They even ate my sister's horse. If you guys go forward, you must be careful." The large man was stunned. You guys came from the front?" "Yes." Lin Muyu said, "But we didn't go too deep. Those ferocious beasts are too scary. Although you guys are mercenaries, I advise you not to enter this forest." The large man laughed and patted his chest. "Don't worry. Our cruel willow mercenary group won't give up so easily. You guys go quickly and don't disturb our mercenary group's search for the Heavenly Tome. Well then, take care." Lin Muyu cupped her fists and immediately urged her horse to leave with Qin. It was better to cause less trouble and return to Lanyan City as soon as possible to take charge of the overall situation. After all, Qin had been away from Lanyan City for at least half a month. She did not know how Tang Xiaoxi and Feng Jixing were doing, nor did she know how the political affairs of Lanyan City were handled. However, Tang Xiaoxi was exceptionally intelligent. She should not have done anything wrong. They galloped along the way. Treading snow ate the wild grass with strong spiritual power in the forest, and became plump and strong. Even though they were riding on horses, they still maintained a high speed. It was true that they could travel thousands of miles in a day. They arrived at White Leaves City by dusk. Under the glow of the evening sun, White Leaves City sat in the middle of the field. It was indescribably peaceful. "We'll rest in the White Leaves Forest tonight and set off tomorrow," Lin Muyu said. "Okay. It's time to eat well and sleep well." "Yes." However, just before the two of them entered White Leaves City, they saw a notice posted outside the city wall. It was a wanted poster, and there was a drawing of Lin Muyu and Qin. Unfortunately, the drawing was 2F** king different. As a result, no one recognized Lin Muyu and Qin when they swaggered into the city. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.